Hey, footy fans, welcome to the Point of Difference Rugby League podcast. I'm your host, Dave, and today we're going back in the day with one of the most popular Australians ever to grace the shores of New Zealand. You know, it's the king of the charge down, the one and only Steve Price. How you going, brother?
Good day. How are you, mate? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, mate, big grin on the face, you know, bit of a fanboy of the old Steve Price. So, it's a pretty good day for me, man. Oh, mate, what have you been up to, man? What are you doing with yourself?
Uh, Currently, I just work as a health and safety officer or advisor out on the gas rigs out in southeast Queensland. So, yeah, it was sort of FIFO type work. So 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And it's pretty cool, actually. Like, there's a lot of guys where I grew up in Toowoomba who went to the same school or come from the same area, or and they're all massive league fans. So we have a good yarn about the old days and yeah, how we sort of cross paths in some way, or you know, we're from the same sort of club and from the same place and did the same thing.
Awesome, man. That's so cool. I think it's pretty fair to say you're pretty much a honorary Kiwi over here. But we all love the way you played for the Warriors jersey with so much pride and passion, and playing in that all golds match as well. Would you think? Yeah, do you feel like a bit of a Kiwi, a little bit in there?
Yeah, well, it was really crazy, mate. I suppose the biggest part of the decision to go to New Zealand was how Joe and the kids would feel, and that was probably my biggest fear. Joey went over sort of when we were having the discussions with the Warriors to have a look, and I just sort of said to her, go over and see whether you could live in NZ. And she went over and had a look, and she goes, yeah, absolutely, I could live in Auckland and live in New Zealand. So that was the biggest part of the sort of conversation. And I've got to say, that ended up being the greatest part of our whole experience, because we were going over there for footy, but we got so much more out of our experience than just rugby league. So yeah, I've got to thank the people in New Zealand and obviously the Warriors for creating that great experience for us. And it's something our kids, it's certainly been a massive part of their development and how the people they've become. And they've still got some really, really close friends over there in New Zealand, and particularly with JMO when she plays sort of for the Diamonds in New Zealand. A lot of her schoolmates that she went to school with go along and support her. They don't wear the green and gold, but they definitely support her.
Oh, mate, that's so fantastic. We're definitely going to cover a lot more about coming over to the Warriors later on. But to start with, I always ask everyone this question. Where did you grow up, and what was life like for you as a young fella, and where did the rugby league journey start?
Yeah, so I was born in a place called Dalby. It's a couple of hours sort of west of Brisbane, about a 6,000 sort of population, farming community. My mum and dad had a trailer building business, so semi-trailers. Dad was very, very creative from the sort of boilermaker perspective, but wasn't very good in the tax side of things. And when I was 6, we went bankrupt. So we, mum and dad then split. We moved to Brisbane. Mum then met my now stepfather, and then we moved to Toowoomba, and that's where I was sort of 8, turning 9, and that's where one of my mates at school asked me to come along and play this game of rugby league, which I'd only played soccer and all the other sports as a kid you do. And mum wasn't super keen, but my stepfather was a league tragic, so he sort of said, "No, he'll be right. It'll be good for him." And that's where it all started. I didn't end up playing in the team that my mate was in, because he was actually a year older than me, even though he's in my same class at school. So I ended up being with a whole lot of different kids, which probably ended up being good too, because a lot of those kids in that team that I could have been in ended up going to jail and sort of going down the wrong path. So the boys that I ended up being with, there was about 4 of us that went on to the NRL. So it was a pretty talented little group, from a small country town in southeast Queensland.
Were you quite a shy lad, or were you quite outspoken as a young fella? Like, did that translate onto the field?
No, pretty shy, mate. But all the sort of teams when I was growing up, I was always the captain or vice captain of the team. So must have been something that I did where I wasn't super, super shy, but I obviously wasn't put myself out there either and the main voice of the group. But yeah, I loved it, mate. I know our coach that year said to us, under nines, go home and watch State of Origin, and whoever wears your number that you wear, I want you to play like them on that weekend. And that was Bob Linder for me. And from
mate,
that day on, I just absolutely, thought he was the gun, and just loved how he went about the way he did things. He was always in superstar teams, but he was always one of the best players in those teams, but wasn't the biggest name and wasn't, so I sort of thought, far out, if I could be a Bobby Linder, I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, man, he's a bit of a legend, eh? Bit of a legend. So, what was it about the game as a young fella that kept you coming back to the field every week? Was it the smashing guys in half? Was it running the ball, taking those carries? What was it for you that really was the appeal for you?
I think the first time I touched the ball, I actually scored a try, and it was more out of fear, getting tackled.
Sounds
So
like me when I was a kid.
I just ran, and they ended up just sort of yelling at me to put it down over that line, which I did. And I thought, oh yeah, this is pretty cool. So we had some really good coaches, mate. One of the things that I always get asked is, who are your greatest coaches you had? And everyone, I think, assumes you're going to say Wayne Bennett or, Steve Folkes or Chris Anderson or all the guys that everyone knows. But the greatest coaches I ever had were the ones that I had when I was a kid. They sort of helped form me as a young man, and their philosophy was to help create good young men through rugby league, and through discipline and all of that sort of stuff, respect and trust and everything like that. And I'm still really good mates with those guys who were my coaches when I was a kid. When I made Origin, I gave them all, well, I didn't think I was going to be able to do it at the time, but I was fortunate enough to play enough Origin games to be able to give them all a jersey each. And I just wanted to show them the significance they had in my life, and, how much it meant to me, their impact on me. Obviously, mum and dad sort of splitting. My stepfather played a huge role in my life, but those guys played another big part of my life in being a role model, as that male role model in my life. So, I was very appreciative of that. And, I think that was the greatest thing I took out of rugby league as a kid growing up, was so many things that taught me about being a good human being and a part of the community.
That's so awesome. You're able to go on and play so many origins that you're able to sort of repay that, that I don't know, that help they gave you growing up and becoming a fine player, but becoming a great person. I just think that's awesome so much, man. So, who did you go on and play for in your junior days when you came through the ranks? Before making your first grade sort of, signing with the Bulldogs, what was the journey to get there?
Yeah, mum is big on sort of being loyal and that type of thing. So I signed up for a club called Newtown in Toowoomba, and I was under nines, and I went all the way through the juniors to under 16s. We won, I think, probably 3 or 4 competitions during that sort of period, and we're always in the finals and potentially grand finals most years. We had a pretty good sort of handy team, and then played seniors at Newtown as well. And then that's when I was at the high school, or primary and high school, was Harristown in Toowoomba. It was just a public primary and high school, and we had a pretty handy team, same boys actually, who then went on. It's called the Commonwealth Bank Cup back in the day, which was a very high profile sort of schoolboys competition, and we ended up making the national grand final, which we were beaten by 1 point in the last minute by Fairfield Patrician Brothers. So that got me the opportunity to be seen by Peter Moore. But before that, I'd actually signed a scholarship with the Gold Coast Seagulls. So at the end of year 12, I was supposed to go down to the Gold Coast and play under 21s. When I finished year 12, they sort of said, you're a bit young, stay in Toowoomba another year and come down at the end of next year. So I ended up going back and repeating. I wanted to be a policeman when I was a kid. And when I was coming through, you needed to be able to do your law degree as part of your sort of, police academy and all that type of thing. So you needed a pretty high, they call it a TE score back then, tertiary entrance. You need an 880, and the highest was 990. So I think I ended up with 680. So it was a fair way off.
So a bit of a way to go.
That's right. So I went back to school with the intention to get better marks, to try and become a policeman, and also fill in that sort of year. And that's when we had even more success with the footy team at the school. And yeah, everything sort of changed, I suppose, that year. Peter Moore saw me play at the state titles and the schoolboys, and then wanted to sign me, and sort of he had the idea of, if you got the mum, you got the kid.
Yeah.
He sent mum some flowers, I think, every day for about 2 weeks. And
Oh,
when
good.
mum said, you're going to go to the Bulldogs, mate. That's where I ended up.
Oh, that's amazing. So what happened when you got to the Bulldogs? Like, what was the journey leaving home and going over to the Bulldogs and signing with the club? And as a young fella, that must have been pretty daunting.
Yeah, I suppose the best way to explain Toowoomba is very similar to Hamilton. It's 150, 200,000 population. It's
Right.
not far from the major city. It's sort of the hub of the West, or in Auckland, probably you'd say the hub of the North Island. And it's that sort of town. But you go to Sydney, where there's 5 million or however many million, and in Sydney, it's quite a jump up for a country kid, So I did really struggle. There was no one down there that I knew. My girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she was still up in Queensland. There was a whole heap of things that, I was really missing home. So I think a year or so in, I actually said to Peter, I think I want to go home, mate, and he goes, well, what did you say to me when you came here, And I said, well, you asked me what do you want to get out of this? And I said, I don't want to go home a loser. And what I meant by that was not having gone home, not having given it a good crack. He said, if you go home now, you're going to go home, in your words, a loser. Like, you're not going to haven't given it your best crack. So he said, go home and find out what it is that you think you're missing, and then come back and tell me what your decision is. So I went home, spoke to all my mates. They were all saying, bro, like, you're in the place we want to be. Like, we all grew up wanting to be where you are. And I'm sort of saying, yeah, but I want to be back here with you guys. And they go, no, because we could have done a lot better at school, like most young fellas. And so they were doing jobs that they weren't really enjoying. They weren't really getting paid much. They were playing footy still, but, they'd pretty much get on the grog on Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, and then back to work on Monday and do that all over again. So I pretty much shot straight back to Sydney going, you know what, I'm doing pretty well. And, if it's 10 years of my life, then, and that's a really good rugby league career, right? You can end up living wherever you want, and you've had a pretty good rugby league career. So I sort of went back down and changed my whole attitude very quickly.
That's awesome. And I also, when I posted on the Facebook that you were coming on the show, there was your Sydney mum who replied as a person who commented. So I hear there's a bit of a story about where you lived and the first day arriving there.
Yeah, so it was organised for Darren Smith to pick me up, who I didn't know much about Darren, other than that he played for Queensland in Origin. He wore a headgear. He was going to be at the airport to pick me up. So Sydney Airport, hardly ever been there. I land, I'm finding my bag, I'm looking around for this guy. Where's this Darren Smith guy? We're pretty much the only guys left around the carousel. He comes up to me and says, are you Steve Price? I said, are you Darren Smith? Yep. Yeah. Sweet. I almost get run over on the pedestrian crossing walking out because cars don't stop, whereas where I'm from, they do. And he took me straight to Colleen's, and from Colleen's perspective, what she was told, because she was a member of the squash club at the Leagues Club, and Peter Moore asked her, would she consider looking after this young fella from Toowoomba, pretty much, would you mind if he lived with you? And so anyway, she had the idea that I was coming in to have a look and then see what I thought. So Darren sort of introduced us both, and then, Colleen showed us around the unit. It's only a 2-bedroom unit in Belmore. And then Darren said, "Oh, okay, then, well, I'm going to go. I'll see you tomorrow, mate." And I'm thinking, I'm coming with you, aren't I? And Colleen's thinking, he's going with you, isn't he? Like, it was like, Darren's, all right, see you later. Close the door, he's gone. And yeah, I spent the next 2 years living with this lady that pretty much got dropped on a doorstep. But yeah, she was about mum's age. Awesome. She didn't have any kids herself. Tied up in the Leagues Club, very passionate about the Bulldogs. And we only lived around the corner from Belmore Sports Ground. So, yeah, she really, really looked after me. And I think it was probably the best way for me to come into Sydney rather than living with a whole heap of young blokes. She fed me very well. Made sure that I was okay mentally all the time. And yeah, she actually did treat me like I was her son. So I was very, very lucky for sure.
Yeah, mate, that's all such a cool story. There's also another story a little birdie told me about a particular time you ran the fastest you ever have in your life, turned up back home to Colleen's house, pale-faced, spent almost a week's wages on a taxi fare to get home from a footy match in Penrith. And she laughed so hard that she cried. Would you like to
Well,
tell us that story?
it actually wasn't a footy match at Penrith. Me and another young fella, Michael Elmore, who's from Queensland as well, we were going to brave the West and go out at it wasn't Kicks, because Kicks was at Parramatta Leagues Club. It was whatever the nightclub was named at Penrith Leagues. And we'd sort of heard all about this nightclub, and you had to actually book the night before, buy your ticket the night before. Like, you couldn't actually turn up on the night. So we're like, yeah, we're going to Penrith Leagues and we're going to go out, all this sort of stuff. So we caught the train out there, all, probably 18 or 19 years old, thinking we're mad as, and turn up there. I think we were walking down the stairs to go into this place, and Michael would just look behind him, and there was a girl, and she's not wearing a lot. And we almost got in a fight straight away because her boyfriend was standing behind her and says, "What are you looking at, mate?" Poor Mick shit himself. And yeah, so we ended up there, and the night went sort of reasonably well. We sort of thought, oh, we better go home now. So we've gone back to the Penrith train station, and this guy walks up to us with this trench coat on, and pretty much opens up and says, "Have you guys got any problems here?" Like, and he's got knives and guns and all sorts of stuff in his trench coats.
What?
And we go, absolutely not. We just do the bolt, find the closest cab, jump in the cab. I think it cost $100. We didn't have $100, but we definitely found it. And we never went back out to Penrith again, other than what we had to when we had to play out there. So it definitely taught a couple of young kids from Queensland to, yeah, it's not all the same everywhere you go in Sydney.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love it. Right. So, what was it like though? Like, you say you're like 18, 19 years old. What's it like rocking up to training? These guys like Terry Lamb, Marty Bella, Darren Britt, Jim Dimmock, just to name a few. You just walk in awe of these guys. Like, what's the mindset when you rock up to Bulldogs for the first time?
The crazy thing was, as a kid, I was a huge Bulldogs fan. It was probably because of Ray Price. So I used to tell everyone at school he was my uncle. And anyway, I turned up at Canterbury, and Canterbury's the arch rivals of Parramatta during the 80s. So first person I met is Terry Lamb, and Bar was unreal. And I wasn't a huge fan of Bar as a player because, I was like Brett Kenny and Steve Ella, and they're sort of glamour boys. They're not dirty, and whereas Bar was in your face and, knocking Ellery Hanley and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that's right. Well, he just played at the absolute limits. And Bar was the first guy to come up to me and introduced himself and said, "If there's anything I can do, anything you need, you just let me know. If I can't do it, I'll find someone who can." I went, wow, how good. The royalty of Belmore, and this guy's coming up and treat me like this. And then Marty Bella, who I was a huge fan of, being a Queensland kid and that type of thing, he just signed with Canterbury, and we're out the front on the Terry Lamb Oval, it's called now, the Terry Lamb Park, I think, whatever it is. We're out the front, and the three grades are playing touch. So there's about 60 or 70 blokes. So we're almost shoulder to shoulder. And Marty throws this pass, and it goes past about 10 blokes. And I was sort of one of the last ones. And I just pulled my hands back because I thought it was for the next guy, right?
Yeah.
Ball hits the ground. And Marty goes, where do we get this fella from? He's hopeless. And I look over at him and I go, this is the first experience I've had with Marty Bella. The first experience I had with Terry Lamb was amazing. Completely switched it on its head for what I was thinking, that he was a nasty person. And I thought Marty was awesome. And now Marty's a nasty person. So it sort of turned my whole world on its head. But yeah, Bar didn't change. He was absolutely incredible. And I had a fair few injuries when I first went to Canterbury, and all I wanted to do was play with Terry Lamb. And he was sort of older, and every year there was talk that he was going to retire. And I said to him one day, all I want to do is play with you, Bar, like I really do, And he goes, mate, you're going to have a really long career. Don't worry about playing with me, I didn't eventually get to play with Bar, but that was my biggest goal, was to play with Terry Lamb. And I'm so glad I did, because, he was a phenomenal player and a great person. Taught me a lot. One of the biggest things I did when I first played first grade was I'd get in the dressing room, and I'm sort of someone who can't complicate things. And he could sort of tell, I'd get in there pretty early and I'd just sit around. He just sort of saw that I was burning a lot of energy that I didn't have to. So he sort of come to me and he said, mate, what are you doing in here? What are you in the dressing room so early? I go, just getting prepared, getting ready, getting me head in the game. And he goes, mate, you don't need to be in here that long. Like, sort yourself out so that you can get done what you got to get done, and then go away and stop thinking about the game, and then come back and pretty much just play, right? So I tried it the next game, and I ended up doing that for the rest of my career, which was whenever we'd play an away game, I'd get like straight off the bus, I'd go straight in the dressing room and I'd get strapped, because I felt as though the strapping thing was the only thing that I didn't have control over. So if you don't at first, then you've got to wait in whatever line you're in, and that could really impact on your preparation, right? So I didn't want to be that guy who was waiting last to get strapped and everyone's getting ready to go out and warm up. You can't do anything about it. So even in Origin, playing for Australia, I'd get straight off the bus, I'd go straight into the dressing room, and I'd sit up on the bench ready to get strapped by the strapper. Once I was strapped, then I'd go out and sit in the grandstand, and I'd stay out there until, watching reserve grade or the pre-game, until 20 minutes before the game. And that would give me enough time just to put my clothes on, and our final preparations will warm up, ready to go. Really, really worked for me. So those are the type of things that Bar was very, very good at. He also said about being consistent. He goes, consistency is your greatest performance and your worst performance. And the lesser the gap between those means that you're more consistent. So as a young fella, you'll go out and play unbelievable, but the next week you'll play pretty ordinary. And that's why they call young fellas inconsistent, right? As you get older and more experienced, you mightn't be feeling the best, but you'll still go out and have a standard that you sort of hit every week. And that's expectation, whatever you want to call it. But that was another really good thing that Bar simplified it for me and actually said, this is how you got to look at it, mate. When we're talking about being consistent, that's all it is. It's a lot of it's mental. Physically, you're going to be in different situations every week. You're either going to be 100% fit or you're going to be 40% fit. But if you're deciding to play, you're deciding to play. So you've still got to go out and be at that standard that everyone expects you, your teammates, everyone that's going to that game, and yourself should as well. So all those little things were super, super good for a young fella coming through to start having standards and being able to work out what this professional rugby league career is going to be like.
Well, it certainly works. Definitely, especially your time at the Warriors was a time where I watched, every game, every week, and it's, just that standard was so high, from yourself. It's so obvious. But, already an Origin rep and all of that, before your time at the Warriors, a couple of grand finals, it's pretty obvious, that definitely rubbed off on you in the right way. So let's go back to your first grade debut. From what I've found, it was against the Balmain Tigers, and you played a handful of games during the regular season. Like, what are your memories of those first few games? Because you're quite young. It's like 1994. It's a bit of a way back now.
Yeah, it's a while ago. So back then, you play reserve grade or under 21s, and then Gary Hughes is a very famous Bulldogs name, family
Yes.
name. He was sort of the GM of footy. He'd come up to you sort of at half time or towards the end of the game you were playing in and give you a jersey for the next game. So,
Okay.
I sort of went from under 21s to playing a bit of reserve grade. And then if you were playing all right and we were winning at halftime in reserve grade, they'd take you off the field and they'd say, right, here you go, here's your jersey. You're going to sit on the bench for first grade.
Cool.
So there'd be about 10 or 12 blokes sitting on the bench, and any one
Yeah.
of you could get a run. So they had two guys who were named as an interchange player, and
Yes.
those guys could go on and off the field as many times as they wanted. And
Yep.
the other two players, if they were used, went on and stayed on. They didn't come
Okay.
off. So you're a permanent interchange, I suppose. So what coaches would do if you're winning well or if you're losing badly, they generally find an opportunity to play a young fella late in the game, give him 5 or 10 minutes, whatever it might have been, to get him out there. And I still to this day cannot remember making my debut against Balmain. I actually thought my debut was against Manly. I thought it was a Friday night game against Manly. They
That's
were
hilarious.
a gun team, Ian Roberts. They had,
Oh, mate.
Desi
94, that
Howe.
was stacked.
They were stacked, mate, right? So it was a Friday night game at Belmore. It was packed, big game. I come off the bench, and all I remember is running. And I always used to have a bit of footwork because some of the guys you come up against, you don't want to run straight at them because it's not going to end too good. And one of those guys was Ian Roberts, right? He could whack.
Mate, you got
So
it.
I actually did step, but he must have picked my step, and he's actually completely emptied me out. I think he hit me that hard that I hit the ground and bounced back up. And I played the ball, and he's pretty much just pushed me and said, "There's plenty more from where that come from, boy. Keep coming like this." And then Dean Pay's behind me, and he's like pushed him and pretty much said what everyone knows about Ian now: leave him alone, such and other. And I'm going, yeah, what he said, yeah. Absolutely packing my pants. But that's probably my
Funny.
most memorable moment when I first played. But when you're talking about Balmain, they had Paul Sarin and, they had a stack team, Tim Brasher.
Oh, my God.
They had guys like that as well. So I don't know why I don't remember that game, but I can't remember that game, which is my debut. And it was probably because Billy Johnson would have been on the sideline and said, "Price, you're on," and you've got no time to think about anything, and you're just out there. And then it would have been the last couple of minutes. So I would have been out there, and then the game's over, and then you just go, "Did that actually just happen?" Yeah.
That's awesome. So the Bulldogs had a pretty awesome season. And you ended up getting selected to play in the grand final against the Canberra Raiders. But I actually discovered you weren't actually named to play at all originally. But you ended up playing. So how did that all happen? And just how incredible was that?
Yeah. So again, exactly what I just spoke about. So there was only two guys who were named as the interchange players, and then the coach had another two players he could use. So again, it was pretty much our reserve grade side was sitting on the bench. There was about 12 of us. So I think it was might have been Darren Smith and Mark Brockenshire that was the two interchange guys that were named. But Chris didn't end up using Darren because Darren signed with Brisbane Broncos for 1995. Yes. And the way we started in that game, Marty Bella dropped it off the kickoff, and things didn't go too good after that. We got absolutely flogged by Canberra. And obviously, the longer the game went, Chris obviously thought, well, we've got a kid here who's going to be with us for the next so many years. I'd prefer to give him a game than give Darren Smith a game, which was sad because I was really good mates. Well, I am really good mates with Smithy. And it was his last game at the club, and he was on fire. Like, he was playing that well. He should have made the Kangaroo tour and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, Darren didn't play, and I played. I've come off the field just buzzing, thinking this is amazing. We've just beaten by 30. And I sort of walk in. I did a lap of honour with Canberra because Mum was in the crowd, and I had no expectation. Like, literally, grand final week, we didn't go to the grand final breakfast. We were actually just extras. When the boys trained, we were standing over in the corner just doing some fitness stuff. That's sort of how our week went. And then boys went to the grand final breakfast and all that. And then to turn up on grand final day, we just got dressed and walked down the tunnel and sat on the bench. So that's pretty much what we thought was happening. Next thing Billy says, Pricey, you're on. And I've just gone, holy, like, here we go.
Wow.
So yeah, on the field, I did a lap of honour with Canberra, come back to the dressing room, and Bar's, devastated, and Peter Moore's devastated, and Bullfrog goes, Steve, you never want to feel like this ever again. And I look at him and I go, are you serious? This is unbelievable. Like, I've dreamt of this my whole life. And he goes, no, you never want to feel like this ever again, mate. And I go, you're crazy, man. This is great. This is so good. And the next year we won it. And I understand what he was talking about, right? Because, yeah, losing a grand final, you almost feel as though you'd rather not be in it.
Yeah.
Whereas when you win it, it's euphoric. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, man, it totally is. But like you said, 1995, a bit of a crazy time for rugby league. The Super League war sort of breaking out. Like you said, Darren Smith signed with the Broncos. You've got, Jason Smith, Dean Pay, Dimmick, and Darren McCracken, and all jumping ship to Parramatta. I think even Brett Dallas, he went to the Bears. So, your team's getting picked apart. And so what was like your journey through the Super League war? How did it affect you? And what was it like being at a club, where clearly it was affecting the roster in a major way?
Yeah, so the Bulldogs were sort of seen as the club that was going with Super League, okay? So when all the big names signed, and that's Dino and everyone, they signed with Super League. And then they backflipped. So they'd already signed, and I'm a 19-year-old, and I hadn't heard anything from Super League or from the ARL, and I'm just going, wow, this is not cool. Like, they're talking about all these big contracts and haven't had anything. And then we turned up to training one day, and Chris Anderson said, boys, you're going to meet at the Travelodge in Bass Hill it might have been the Holiday Inn at Bass Hill at blah, blah, blah time. And so I turned up there, and then, yeah, that's when we were being signed by Super League. So we went in one at a time. We didn't have enough time for our managers to be there. This is sort of how crazy it was. And pretty much went into a room. Michael O'Connor was the guy that I spoke with. And he pretty much said, this is what we're going to offer you. And I sort of had a bit of courage and said, well, I think I'm worth this. And then he's absolutely lost it. He goes, what have you done? You've done nothing in your career. I played in test matches. I played in, state of origins. I played in grand finals. You've done nothing. And you think you should get this much money. And I've just gone, oh, yeah, like I've gone, oh, shit, sorry. So I ended up signing, I think it was for 90, 110, 130. Okay. Now, before that, I was on 20, but I had a job.
Not bad. It's not bad for a 19-year-old.
That's right. But I had a job, right? So
yep.
From a tax perspective, my job was probably getting paid 20 or 30 grand a year. And my footy, I was getting paid 20 grand, but we got that paid half yearly. So you didn't get really taxed on it. Plus, my accommodation was sorted, my medical, private health was covered. You go Super League, you're getting taxed half. You got to pay for your accommodation. You got to pay for your health fund. So I'm thinking, oh my God, this money's massive. I end up being probably worse off than what I was.
Oh my God.
That's right. So, but still, I'm not complaining. The money that I was on was great. But yeah, it was definitely a crazy time. And then the boys switched back. One of the great things that happened was that it was Bulldogs through and through in regards to, batten down the hatches. It's us against them. Yep. We had no chance in that grand final, but that's just typical Bulldogs. I think Manly lost 2 games that year, the whole year.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Crazy. Terry Lamb gets 10 minutes. Robert Ralph was injured during the final series. I ended up starting. I think I'd started once or twice in the whole year to go then starting in 2 or 3 of the finals games, and just real crazy stuff that happened. So it was a huge achievement. typical Bulldogs, and yeah, it was a crazy time because sadly it did split, the game down the guts,
Yeah.
and there were some guys who did really well financially out of it, but obviously our fans got really hurt by it. And there were some things that happened later that was really good because it brought our fans' connection back to the players again, which during that period really, cut it. I mean, I was working at Westpac in Beverly Hills as a bank
Yeah.
Johnny.
For
So
real.
on Monday morning, if you didn't play real good, Mrs. Jones would actually tell you when she's going to deposit money in the bank. And then when Super League started, you were pretty much full-time footy. You didn't have any interaction with the community at all. And I really enjoyed that part of it because, again, you're a part of the community. You're not anyone special. You're not, anyone bigger than anyone else. And I just sort of felt as though that sort of separated us a little bit from the everyday livings that we should have been doing. But it also gave us opportunities to learn and understand how this whole new professional thing's gonna go. Like
Yeah.
when we first started, it was pretty much 9 to 5, and we just sit around having meetings and training, and you can
Yeah.
only do so much. Coaches and high performance started working out that wasn't going to work, and yeah, I think the model they've got now is pretty good. I think the combination between what the players do in the community, what they do studying wise to personally develop themselves, as well
Yep.
as, giving time to their career to make them the best athletes they can be, I think is getting pretty close to being, the sweet spot.
Yeah, man. So let's touch on that 1995 grand final. I mean, you're only a young fella. You get elevated to start the game. Manly's the hottest ticket in town. Like they're tearing everyone to shreds. You come on and score like one of the first, just the first try of the grand final.
Yeah, so I started. I started, I think, against Brisbane, and then we played the Raiders, and then obviously the Manly. So I started in previous sort of 2 games to get to the grand final, but again started, and I had a couple of mates come down from Queensland, and they said, "Oh, I'm going to put money on you to score the first try." I said, "Don't be an idiot!" Like I was paying $55 or something because I think I'd scored maybe 1 try in my whole season or previous 2 seasons. Anyway, yeah, score the first try. They say I was off a forward pass, but it definitely wasn't.
Also,
Yeah,
was
we end up. It was crazy how that game went. The longer it went, sort of the better that we got, I suppose.
Yep.
And as I said, Terry Lamb got 10 minutes in the bin. He was our biggest player at the time, but we were able to hold him out during that time. And yeah, I think stuff went wrong for Manly all day. Like I think in the warm up, I think Spud had a head collision with someone in the warm up.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
just crazy stuff that happened that, yeah, I suppose showed that it was going to be our day.
That's unbelievable. And you mentioned earlier, like you always wanted to just play with Terry Lamb. Not only did you do that, you won the grand final with him. It's like his final match, retiring. Well, I think he came back though in '96,
He
but
did, yeah. So
at the time, it was his final match. Like, what a way to send him out! And unbelievable. And like, you guys actually struggled sort of halfway through the season. You guys weren't actually traveling along that well until like what changed? Like, because you guys had a late season run, you scraped into the finals, and you went all the way. Unbelievable fairy tale.
we played Parramatta at Parramatta Stadium, and we got beaten pretty well. And Peter Moore's sitting there, and I said something to him. I can't remember exactly what it is, but Bullfrog looked at me like to go, "This 19-year-old kid is telling me everything's going to be all right. We've just been beaten by Parramatta. Like everything's not all right. What the hell is this kid talking about?" And yeah, Chris just did what he does. Usually back then, it was when things aren't going good, you turn up the train. I didn't drink, but you turn up the train, and Opes is his nickname. Chris would just say, "Right, boys, today we're going to the pub and we're spending the day at the pub." You pretty much, the boys would get on the grog, have a couple of fights. You turn back to training the next day and you go on an 8 or 9 winning streak and end up winning the comp that year. That's exactly what happened. So
Unbelievable.
I don't think it's the way you do it these days, but certainly back then, that type of thing used to work, right? And we had that type of group. We had a lot of country boys who the more honest you were and more upfront you were, the better things were. So when things weren't going so good, you just need an honesty session or a kangaroo court. Get all the shit out there. Let's sort it out and let's just move on. So, and that was that group, your Darren Brits and your Simon Gillies and all these guys, good quality, Dean Pay, country kids, salt of the earth, tough as. They just play footy and you know where you stand with them,
Yeah, man. Oh, mate. Who were some of the jokers in the team like that sort of brought the team together when the chips were down? Was there anyone that would, wind everyone up and just relax the mood a little bit?
We had a pretty diverse group. So you have Jason Hetherington, who's very dry and he's in the way he talks. He talks real slow and has real dry jokes. Everyone cracks up and always has one-liners that just blows everyone's mind to bits, in times where you need it. You'd have other guys who are really quiet. Brett Dallas wouldn't say anything. And then, I sort of hung probably more with the Matty Ryans and the Hasmel Masris, who didn't drink, just because I didn't drink. But that didn't mean I didn't get on with the other boys. The other boys, I was one of the younger fellas, just looking up to them and sort of on their coattails, I suppose. I definitely wasn't one of the reasons why we got to where we got to, and I was learning so much. Simon Gillies took me under his wing right from the start, so we do a lot of warm up stuff together and post training stuff, and it was all very basic fundamental stuff. So he knew that was something that really works for him, and he knew that it worked for me, and it did, absolutely did. But jokesters, Robert Ralph, he always thought he was pretty funny. Who else? Jared McCracken was someone that I didn't muck around with. Once we were getting ready for the nines or the sevens. The sevens, it used to be sevens, and I was in the squad, and I've gone to sort of grab him, and his singlet started to rip, and he's flung around, just missed me head, and absolutely wanted to knock me head off because I was going to almost rip his singlet. And I was going, holy, that was really close. So, yeah, I sort of let Jared run through most of the times at training. Then I didn't really get in his road. But no, there was, Darren Britt was another one like Jason Hetherington, very dry, very good sense of humour. It was one of those ones that would set a pretty good sort of standard, I suppose. He'd really bring a time that was quite, there might have been a bit of tension. He'd say something just out of the blue that would crack everyone up.
Oh, that's awesome, mate. I love it. So skipping forward, the NRL's formed, the Super League war's over, 1998. You guys start with a win and then 5 straight losses, and you're like kind of fumbling along. You did your usual, won 8 games in a row, qualify for the grand final. But what are your memories of that great run through the playoffs? Because you had to get through St. George, North Sydney, Newcastle, and then the Great Escape in Parramatta, which is an unbelievable game. That's a lot of sudden death football to get through to go to the big dance.
Yeah, well, it was. Like, I think even to make the grand final, we had to beat Illawarra, the Illawarra Steelers in Illawarra. And I think Polly kicked a field goal in the last minute to win that game. So that was just to make the semis. So I was going to book a holiday to Thailand the next week. And because we won, I've gone, oh, that's all right. We'll wait another week. And then we just kept winning. Actually.
No holiday for you.
I don't know what it was, but we just had players in our team that could come up with things at times that the opposition weren't expecting it, but we needed it. Rod Silver and these sort of guys that just came up with massive plays at huge times. I know those 2 games you're talking about, the Newcastle game and the Parramatta game, both went into overtime. All our fans left the stadium before the end of the game because with 10 minutes to go, we were down. I think one of them we were down 18-2 with 10 minutes to go.
That's Parramatta game.
That's right. Yeah. And we come back and draw it. And apparently they're all trying to get back into the stadium because it's gone into overtime. So then in the grand final, we're playing this superstar Broncos team that mate, there was definitely no cap in that team. The players that you go through that they had. And we're actually up at halftime, 12-10. And then I think we got beaten 36-12.
Yeah,
Tony
cut the
Carroll,
hide again the second half.
Tony Carroll come out and absolutely ripped us apart. And I made the Aussie side for the first time that year, and also made Origin that year too. And all the boys, because we played against the Kiwis in New Zealand in my first. My first test was at Suncorp. A week or two later, and Joe Varganer knocked me clean out in my first game. And then the next week we played in Auckland. We got beaten in the Anzac Day test earlier in the year when Bob Fulton was the coach. And then Wayne took over as coach. And we had, I think, nine or 11 Broncos in the team. And all the boys, when we went into camp, all the boys were saying that Gordy stole Tony Carroll's Clive Churchill medal.
Hey, speaking of Tony Carroll, because I had Peter Ryan on last week, and the story, because he missed the final through suspension, and Tony Carroll got his spot, and he was playing rubbish in the first half. And then Peter Ryan, like Wayne Bennett told him to go talk to Tunza at halftime. So Peter Ryan goes up to him with like a pair of scissors, and he's like, "Mate, you are playing like shit, and if you don't sort your shit out, I'm going to stab you and kill you with these scissors."
Well, it worked.
And he went out and had a blinder.
No, he was unstoppable in that second half. So when you say Peter Ryan, my voice is the way it is because of Peter Ryan.
Oh, really?
So,
really?
Yeah. So Rhino got me. We're playing the Broncos at QE2, or whatever they call it now, ANZ Stadium, whatever it is. And he actually tackled me, and his shoulder hit me, fractured my larynx. So Rhino's the reason why I talk the way I do. And he's a great guy. I get on really, really good with him. But yeah, that's what Peter Ryan's famous for in my voice.
Oh, mate, he was a champion. Like, what a great chat. It's a funny fella. So I also want to talk about that Great Escape semi-final, man. You're down 18-2. Oh my God, like, how did you get out of that? I actually had Paul Carriage on the show as well. We had a great chat about that match.
Poor old Paulie. I don't know whether he's recovered from that, but it was, that's a prime example of momentum change. So Parramatta in total control. There was no reason they were getting ready to play the next week in the grand final. But I think it might have been Robert Ralph who threw that little offload to Rod Silver, and it sort of gave us a glimmer of hope. And then we were able to score another one, and then they couldn't sort of stop us. And both the week before against Newcastle, the same thing happened. When we scored to level it up, then we're actually so dominant in the extra time. You wouldn't have thought that the other team was the team that was so far in front. It was crazy how it happened, but it does happen. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. And it was one of the craziest things I've been a part of. And for us to do it 2 weeks in a row, that's probably why we ended up running out of puff in the second half. But Brisbane turned up the heat as well. But that was a pretty special year that year, and it was Folkesy's first year as our coach. Chris left and went to the Melbourne Storm, and he did a phenomenal job. And do you know what? And I'm not saying this is why we started to go good, but the Bulldogs were always up and in defence. We're the only club that sort of did it at that time. Back in the day, clubs did it. It was Warren Ryan's thing, right? Umbrella up and in. And when I made the Origin team, we went into camp, and Wayne Bennett was into me about chasing the kickers, and Jason Hetherington and I were both in the team, so up and in, and he wanted us to slide, and so he's into us about things. And what they did was what they do now, which was have your left four, your right four, and your tight four, right, and then your fullback. So that's how your formation in attack and defence is. And we never did that. So we were still the old days where you have two centres on the same side, and you halfback and 5'8", and have a backline play, sweeping backline right out the one side, and we're running all over the field. So I went back to training, and I said to folks, I go, we did this thing in Origin where you stay in the same position all game. And all you do is you go up and down those sort of corridors, and it just makes it simpler. And he goes, right. And so we sat down and we talked about it, and we went through it, and we started to implement that into our structure. And then that's when we sort of went on that run. We started playing a lot better. And I don't know whether it was we had more energy, or I don't know, made it simpler, whatever it was. I'm not saying that was the only reason why we went on that run, but there were little things that we started to change that, as you say, we lost 5 in a row and we were looking like we were coming nowhere. I think we had to win 8 or 10 of our last 12, which that didn't change when I went to the Warriors. It sort of seemed to be a consistent thing that I had to do when I was playing.
Yep. What about Craig Polomounta? He went crazy in that extra time, but in that drop goal right on full time just went under the black dot. That match.
I still watch that and think that it still went over. And I wish it went over, because what a way for it to have finished,
Would have been amazing. It would have been the best finish.
And he's that type of player, mate. He was competitive. His calves were bigger than everybody's quads. He was just very competitive, little rocket Gibraltar, and for him to have kicked it that far, to have almost won that game, I wish it did win the game, because it would have been a great way for that game to have finished, for him to have been the person who will finish it. But he went on and played a huge role in that extra time anyway. He scored a try and
crazy.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, mate. I don't think I've ever seen him play a better game, or at least a better 20 minutes. It was just unstoppable.
It was.
Unstoppable. Right. Let's talk about your Queensland representative, sort of time. You made your debut in the 1998 series alongside Peter Ryan, actually. And before we talk about it, I'd love to know what it was like and what it meant to you to be selected for Queensland, to be a part of the history of Origin. It's had some amazing players and matches over the years. What did it mean to you to finally pull on that Queensland jersey and run out for them?
It was really overwhelming, and I think it was probably a detriment to my career by making it, because it meant so much to me, because I didn't truly believe I deserved to be in the company of those players. When you go into a room where there's Wayne Bennett as your coach, and you've got Alan Langer and Gary Larson and Steve Renoff and Darren Smith, Jason Smith, you go through all these names, and I'm just going, wow, this is the royalty of royalty in Queensland. And then you're coming up against Laurie Daly and Glenn Lazarus and, all of these unbelievable players. And I actually sat there pinching myself going, I truly don't believe I deserve to be here. I'm not up to this caliber. And I actually played like that, if I'm being honest. And I sort of started changing things the way I played, because I thought I had to, like, I sound like Darren Lockyer, but I don't play like Darren Lockyer. So don't try to be Darren Lockyer. Okay. But when I made that team, I thought that I had to be someone else. Okay. But what I realised a few years later, and it was when I lost all of that, right? So I lost my Aussie jersey and my Queensland jersey, and I almost got dropped back to reserve grade for Canterbury. I sort of realised why I got to where I got to was because of me and who I was and what I did. And so I went back to the basics and just trying to be me again. And I was lucky to get those opportunities again, because you don't always get them once the red line goes through your name. Sometimes that's it, right? So I was living a dream, if I'm being brutally honest. We probably played with 16 against 17 New South Welshmen, because I wasn't doing the stuff that I had been doing in my preparation. I thought I had to do what Alfie did, which anyone knows what Alfie does. You're probably stupid trying to keep up with him. But that's how I thought I had to fit in, right? I scored a try in my first game. All I thought was, if I can go out and hang around Alan Langer, stuff happens. And I did. And Adam McDougall dropped it, and I was there to pounce and score. And we won in the last minutes to win that, again, coming from behind. But, all I remember is Wayne was into me about not chasing the kicker.
Okay.
And I got on to the field and he sort of said before I went out, he goes, this could be the first of many or your first and last, depending on how you play. So
Thanks, Wade.
a bit of pressure. And went out and I see Andrew Johns in front of me, or it might have been Laurie Daly. It was one of them. And I've gone, this is my chance. You know, I'm not, I know what I'm doing, Wayne. And I shot out. I shot out to charge the ball down. And whichever one it was, I think it might have been Joey. Joey's dummied to kick it, stepped me, run, and then passed to Laurie. Laurie's then passed to Tim Brasher, who's ran around and scored under the post.
Whoops.
I've gone, wow, State of Origin was great. I was off the field before I got back to the try line, hooked. And I think for the next 45 minutes, I was like begging Wayne, can you please give me another chance? Put me back on, please. He ended up putting me back on, and that's when I scored the try. But
lucky.
the caliber of player you're playing against, right? So they're the best in the comp. And yeah, they can make you look pretty silly if you don't listen to very experienced coaches like Wayne Bennett.
Yeah. But what a debut. Not only did you get hooked, but then you scored a try, and then Queensland wins with a Tony Carroll try in the dying seconds of the game. Like, what an unbelievable debut for State of Origin for Steve Price.
Yeah, it was. And the only reason why I got picked was because Brad Thorne was injured. So he got selected, but then he got injured, and I was a late call-up. So it was quite funny, but game 2, I got selected, which, you know, again, I think it was Jason Smith got suspended. That was the only reason why I got picked for game 2. And my wife was pregnant with our second child. So was Wendell Saylor's missus with Tristan. Right. So Tristan Saylor was due to be born pretty much on Origin Day, right? So on the Monday, Wayne goes to me and Wendell, boys, we're going to have Monday off. So why don't you speak to the girls and see if you can get them induced on Monday so that, you know, they've had the baby before the game. And we're not gonna. And so I've rung my missus and I've said, oh, Joey, Wayne just want to know, would it be okay if you got induced on Monday? And she goes, you tell Wayne Bennett he can go and stick his getting induced right up his. Anyway, the 2 girls, they didn't have the kids on Origin night, thankfully. But yeah, they were born. They weren't born on the same day, but they were born only a day or 2 apart. And yeah, it's quite funny because Casey, who's the one that was being born, she actually dates Tyson Smoothie, who plays for the Broncos. Oh, really? Who's at the Broncos with Tristan Saylor, who, you know, we're talking about. So it's quite funny how almost a full circle.
Very full circle moment.
Pretty much born together and now at the same club together.
It's crazy, crazy. Right, so you did win that series in 98. 99, you had a drawn series. 2000, you played 2 games, but then you got dropped from the squad. So just how heartbreaking was that for you? But what did you do to earn your way back to get back in that Queensland side? What did Steve Price go away and work on?
Yeah, so 2000 wasn't a very good year for the Bulldogs either. So 99, we should have been in the grand final. Ricky Stewart's put a kick through. Matty Guys picked it up, run the length and scored in the last minute to put Melbourne in the grand final. 2000, we didn't fire a shot. We were, you know, yeah, we just weren't good. And that's where I was sort of saying to you about, you know, I was trying to be a different player. I was blaming everybody else. You know, I didn't get picked for the Australian team in 2000, so it wasn't my fault. It was the selectors. I don't know why they're not picking me, you know, and all the family and all your friends are saying that to you as well. Oh, I don't know why you're not in the team. And
yeah.
Anyway, I just sat down when I didn't get picked in that game 3. And I just said to my missus, I said, how am I actually playing? And she goes, you want me to tell you how you're really playing? And I said, yeah. So straight away, then I knew that I wasn't going good. And she goes, you're going shit house. You're nothing like the player that you can be and that you are and that type of thing. So that's when I just said to you before, I actually sat down and actually went through, pretty much replayed everything and why did I get to where I got to? what were the things that I used to think of and concentrate on, and all of that. And then I went back to that, and that was just me being me again. And 2001, I got picked in the squad.
Okay.
Wayne said to me that I most probably won't get picked because of what happened in 2000, but he said, keep doing what you're doing, because I was playing reasonably good footy in 2001. I turned it around. He said, we've gone in a different direction. So they went with all the young boys, Brad Myers and Dane Carlaw and Chris Walker and, all these like Case Maguire, all these sort of guys, Carl Webb. And they went well. 2001, they won the series, right? So 2002 comes around. I didn't play a game in 2001. I missed the last game in 2000, which we got absolutely pants. We got beaten by 50, I think, in that game, which
I
was
remember that. Yeah, I think
even
Ryan Girdler had a
tough.
blinder.
Yeah, they scored off the first, I think, 60 seconds. So that was really tough to sit there and watch because I was a part of that squad.
Right.
And I played the previous 2 games and then I couldn't be there to help out. Not that I was going to be of any help, but yeah, that was really, really tough. So 2002 starts, and again, Wayne said the boys that did the job in 2001, so they'll get picked in game 1 of 2002. Don't get knocked around by that. That's going to happen. I can tell you now. You just keep playing your footy, and if things don't go the way we want it, you want to be the guy I look to pick.
Okay.
We got beaten. Joey, I think, was a masterclass in that game with his kicking game. So Wayne brought me in game 2 and just said, I don't care if you don't make any runs. Whenever Andrew Johns even thinks of kicking it, I want you to be all over him like a rash. So I've just gone, sweet. This is the first time Wayne Bennett's ever said to me, you're allowed to chase the kicker.
You're off the lead. Way you go.
Off the lead. This is the greatest thing ever. So we were able to win that game in Brizzy, I think it was. And then game 3 was in Sydney and it was a draw, which because we won the previous series, it was a drawn series, so we held the trophy. So when I went back into that team, I did the things I do. I prepared the way I do. If I went to bed early the night before the game, I would go to bed early the night before the game. And I really wanted to enjoy the whole experience because the previous opportunity I got, I was just tagging along and I played better footy and I wanted to prove to myself that I deserved to be at that level as well. So there was a number of things that I was trying to achieve when I got reinstated. And looking back on my career now, I'm really proud of what I was able to do in that second stint because that's the real Steve Price that I sort of believe that I am. Not the first one, which was a young kid, just absolutely blown away and in awe of the people I was playing with and against, which I'm sure there's plenty of blokes that did that as well, right? That's not unusual, but to then given the opportunity to go out and play a role and be a, an important part of the team, that made me really, really proud of, particularly that team. And the last couple of years of my Origin career, we had such a great run, the 8 straight. I was part of 4 of that, and so good to see those young kids sort of start their pathway into becoming Origin legends.
Well, that's what my next question was going to be. Like, how amazing was it for you as like more of a leader in the side by the point you win a few series in a row and then the young guys come through and carry on with this 8 consecutive series wins for Queensland. Like, it'll never be done again, I don't think. But it was crazy that you also had like, the Melbourne Storm guys, Smith, Cronk, Slater, and then Greg Inglis, but then also Jonathan Thurston all coming through. Like, it's not just one once in a generation player. You had like the whole side of just like incredible, like once in a generation players. It was crazy.
The thing that when you talk about sliding doors, though, like New South Wales were on the verge of winning 4 series in a row, which had never been done. So 2005, they'd won 3 in a row. Right. 2006, they were looking to be the first team in Origin history to win 4 in a row, right? Now, we lost the first game by 1 point. And the media, everyone was calling us Dad's Army, get rid of Sivanasiva, Price,
Yep.
Lockyer, they're too old, they're past it, all of this. Mal, it was his first year as coach, and he had to do something different because we'd lost 3 in a row and we're on our verge of losing 4. You can't just keep doing what you do because you keep getting the same result, right? So he gave us one more opportunity and said, we only just lost, but we it was brought across that we were dominantly bashed up in the middle, right? New South Wales dominated us in the middle with Willie Mason and Mark O'Mealy, and they sort of bullied us, right? So Mel sort of said, you're basically going to get one more chance. We lose this game, we've lost the series, and you guys will never play Origin again. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's being honest and truthful. So that was me, Lockie, and Petro. So there was a lot of pressure on us, but the thing I loved about it the most is none of those boys that you talked about knew about that, and they just went out and played footy. And we won 36-6 in game 2, and Steve Menzies scored in the last 3 minutes. So we were completely dominated them, right? But it still hadn't changed. So that just gave us one more game to play.
Okay.
If they still beat us in Melbourne, they still win the series. So everything went against us in Brisbane, in Melbourne. And we all know what happened. Tatey run the length and scored. And again, down by 10 or something with 10 minutes to go, something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
We come back and we win against all odds, win, and then go on this streak that. So what I'm trying to say is, if we did not win one of those games, our whole team would have changed. Wow. So everything you're talking about now may not have even happened.
It's because crazy,
Mal would have been looking at ways to try and beat this, and New South Wales wouldn't have made any changes because they've just won 4 in a row.
Yeah.
So they're going for number 5, right? So not only do we stop their first time ever 4 in a row, but then we start, which we didn't know at the time, but we start our own dynasty that hasn't been rivaled, and as you say, may not ever be. But that's how close it was, and that's State of Origin. And every one of those games in those 8-year series, there's so many of them that were decided by one penalty or one decision, or we come back from a place we shouldn't have, and it's just crazy how things just sort of happened. Yeah. So that's what I get so much out of that group is all the ups and downs that they went through right from the start, when it may not even happened, to end up achieving something that was quite phenomenal. That if you had said a team would win 8 series in a row, when Origin started, they'd say that's impossible.
Yeah.
It's actually happened, and it happened pretty much stopping New South Wales from doing it, but then straight away starting it happening for Queensland. So, and I think that's what makes Origin so great.
Yeah, man. And also with that deciding match where Tate went the length, was that also the next try when Darren Lockyer swept on that loose pass from, is it Brett Hodgson?
Yeah.
From dummy half or something like that. Then he went over to score.
And Brett Hodgson is one
imagine if that loose
most,
pass wasn't thrown. Everything's different.
Well, Brett Hodgson's one of the most consistent, trusted players you'd ever have in a team. He's not someone who chances his arm. Like, he doesn't make errors. There's a whole heap of things that we're talking about that just shows what happened is absolutely crazy. But it happened. It happened.
Yeah. I'll never forget that match, because I'm Queensland hard, because my dad's from Queensland, from Brisbane, so I'm half Australian. But man, I chant for Queensland every year, hard as, I love it. State of Origin's amazing, love it. Right, so State of Origin's well known for its thuggery over the years, and unfortunately for you, your last moment in Origin was marred by Brett White giving you the old KO, which is very much not your style as a player, getting involved in scuffles on the field. So, what happened in that heat, that split second, heat of the moment when Brett White got up in your face?
Yeah, really disappointing. The way I played the game my whole career is definitely not that craziness of whatever it was, 15 seconds. my biggest disappointment is that's what most people talk about now about my Origin career, which is pretty sad. It was 15 seconds of 28 games, and it's definitely not the way I played the game. So, yeah, basically, it was a tackle in the last minute of a game where we weren't going to win. We were going for a clean sweep. Our preparation of that game was nowhere near what we had prepared like previously. There was a number of players who didn't prepare the way they should have, and yeah, they learn a lot from that. And that's probably another big disappointment of, you know, you don't get too many opportunities to win 3 of the games in a series, and we had that chance, and we, you know, as a group, we had members that actually didn't pay full respect to that opportunity. So nothing away from New South Wales. They played really well and they were very aggressive. But yeah, it was the last minute of the game, and I tackled Brett White with Cameron Smith, and he got up and punched me in the mouth, split me lip, and I sort of want to know why he did that. And he said, because you need me in the head. And I said, I don't think I did, but, you know, my knee did graze his head. It wasn't intentional, but you sort of go, well, it happens nearly in every tackle in every game. But anyway, they were wound up, right? You know, Belly got them wound up like that. And I had that opportunity to walk away like I did every other time. And for some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason I decided to stick up for myself, and yeah, I end up asleep. But I suppose the other disappointing thing about that was the little things like seeing your family so distraught after the game because you're getting carried off and not knowing whether you're okay. And then the other bit was we won the series, and I'm not in one photo for winning that series. It was my last Origin moment. And yeah, it was the complete opposite to how I played my whole career. And I didn't get to be in the team photo to celebrate the series win that year. So it's almost as though I didn't even play a part in that whole series. Like when you look at the record books, there's no photo from that last game. So that's probably, and they're little things, I suppose. But yeah, that's the biggest thing I get disappointed about. And I suppose what happened from it, you know, Justin Paul sort of looking at me, picking me up and dropping me, you know, that was sort of pretty disappointing. And he's come out and said reasons why since, which I don't know. One of the things he said in one of the papers once was that I was giving him a mouthful. And so, you know, he said he was lucky that he didn't punch me. Well, I didn't wake up until I was in the dressing room. So if I was talking gibberish. It wasn't me talking. I woke up to Kevin Rudd. So that's who I woke up to in the dressing room. Kevin Rudd. You know, and yeah, it was probably scary for your family. It was a real disappointing way to finish my Origin career, but super proud of my Origin career in saying that you play 28 games, and whilst that was the last moment of your career, I suppose Brett's going to be known for it. You know, in Origin folklore, he's going to be renowned for something, and I'm going to be as well in a weird way. It was probably the last time there was a real fight in an Origin, I suppose. I don't think there's been one since, so it could have been the last actual fight in a state of Origin. And so it's disappointing, but it happened, and I learned from it, and I learned from it in a way that I was really proud that I didn't do that in my career, because that sort of stuff can happen, right? And it doesn't make you any tougher or any softer if you do fight or you don't fight. I think there's a whole heap of ways where you can show your toughness. And when I was coming through the grades as a kid, I always got questioned about my toughness and whether I've got what it takes to make it. And the thing I'm most proud of is that I didn't change who I was as a person, the way I played. So I don't think you've got to, you know, sort of side shot blokes, you know, or head high guys or punch guys in the mouth to be a tough rugby league player. I still think you can compete at the highest level and represent, you know, your country and your state and your club for 17 years, playing the game fair, and there's a different toughness that comes to it to be able to keep on backing up every week. So, hopefully that's what it teaches a whole heap of kids out there. They're probably not going to get in a situation that I was in, because it doesn't happen in our game really anymore, which is good. But yeah, it probably hit home to me that I did make the right choices during my rugby league career, and I probably made one error of judgment at the last minute of my Origin career, where what had it gone down the same way and just walked off the field with a split lip is probably better than getting carried off on a medicab in front of
Probably.
50,000 people. Pretty much brought up every single time I come across someone. That's what they talk about. So, but anyway, at least you remember for something, I suppose.
Oh, mate. For me personally, it was quite a minor thing, but I just thought I'd ask about because I just remember you're great playing, to be fair. So,
Yeah.
not with me. But carrying on with your rep career, 1998, your name to play for Australia against the Kiwis. How special was it to get your first Kangaroo jersey, play for your country, hear your national anthem? Like, I'd be a blubbering mess if that was me listening to my national anthem in a big game. Like, just how amazing was that, and what are your memories of that debut?
Yeah, I was. And the special thing was the first game was in Brizzy, so all my family were there. I was a blubbering mess. So the national anthem, you're actually singing the national anthem wearing green and gold in front of your family at Suncorp Stadium. Couldn't have thought of any better way. Or actually, it might have been Lang Park. Yeah, it might have been Lang Park. Okay. Still the old Lang Park. But anyway, it was a very special moment. And yeah, as I was saying to you, Joe Wagner knocked me out. I come off the bench. I come off the bench, and I think I was only on there for 5 minutes, and he knocked me out. And then I went back on and played more in the game. But I can't remember much of my first game because I got knocked out. But yeah, truly emotional, special moment, 100%. To be the 667th player picked for the Australian Kangaroos was truly a special moment that no one can ever take away from you.
Absolutely. And in my intro, I said you're one of the most popular Australians ever to grace our shores here in New Zealand. I was at a test match at Mount Smart where they announced the Kangaroo player list and they announced your name. The whole crowd went crazy. First time ever in history that an Australian's been cheered in a home Kiwi, rugby league test match. How did that make you feel, man?
I do remember that, and that actually hit home to me about exactly what how the New Zealand people treated us and actually thought of us. It was truly humbling. So I got emotional when that happened. I'm running out for Australia in New Zealand. At the time was my home ground, but yeah, on the field as the enemy, and everyone went nuts. I thought I heard it wrong. I thought they must have said one of the Kiwis boys' names just before mine, and I heard it wrong. But that was truly humbling, and I do get emotional about that sort of stuff. And there was a moment at the Warriors. We'll talk about it a little bit down the track where I got emotional again, which again was very similar type of situation at Mount Smart.
Yeah, and so as I said, you're very popular Australian. And you stayed in New Zealand because you loved the country after your playing days, and you actually ended up getting the New Zealand Order of Merit during your time in New Zealand. So you really got that connection with the country, the people, the culture, that all plays a part. Just how amazing was that? Like Steve Price, he comes over here to play rugby league. He ends up going home like 13 or so years later with a New Zealand Order of Merit. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, mind blowing. And that's what I was saying to you before. My biggest fear was my family and whether they'd enjoy the experience. And it was blown out of the sky of the things that it was so much more than a rugby league experience, which, initially that's what I was going there to do. I think the greatest thing that we did when we first made the decision to go was that we were going with a very open mind and really wanting to be a part of the community. We're not going there for 3 years and playing the footy and then coming home. Do you know what I mean? We went there and we truly enjoyed, like Jo, my wife, she did a teaching degree over there. So some of the things that she learned and that she would come home and talk to us about, even our kids, they'd sing the national anthem every day at school, right?
Yeah.
And you know, the sort of the connections and the learnings and the things they got of a different culture, and living in a different place that's not too different to where they were from, but is different, was really special. And they truly cherish that. And I can't think of any better experience for my kids than what we actually did. But at the time when I was thinking about it, I didn't think of how much of an impact it would have on their life, right? The schooling over in New Zealand's incredible. You know, like the kids went to Mount Albert Grammar, and it's a grammar school, but it's a public school.
Yeah.
But in Australia, grammar schools are very expensive, and they get all the facilities and all the, you know, support and everything that
Yeah.
New Zealand grammar schools get, which are public schools.
Crazy.
So for our kids to have gone to a school like that, and you know, the people that we met and the way we were treated, and so I think it was a little bit of a two-way street, is the way that you put yourself out there, and then obviously the way that people sort of, you know, treat you and welcome you and that type of thing as well. So the other thing that really blew me away, and I didn't realize how big of a thing it was until when it happened, was actually the invitation to sit on the Santa float in the Auckland parade at Christmas.
I think I
So
remember that.
so that's voted by the New Zealand people.
Yeah.
And I was voted to be the person to sit on Santa's float. It blew me away. Blew me away. So there's little things like that that, you know, really, really showed me sort of what we sort of meant to New Zealand, and it sort of reenacted to what New Zealand meant to us as well. So, and then to be able to finish my time in New Zealand with a foursquare, you can't get much Kiwiana than that.
That is so Kiwi, isn't it?
That's right. So I had the whole experience from playing, you know, captaining a New Zealand team, living in New Zealand, you know, then going on and pretty much finishing my time in New Zealand to owning and running a foursquare in Waipu.
Amazing, eh? Well, honestly though, it goes to show your character as a person, and I think the Warriors fans in particular loved just how we signed this elite Australian state of origin rec player. Warriors aren't renowned for signing these incredible, you know, Australian players who want to come here and then play with 120% passion for the Warriors jersey and be so professional and care so much about the jersey. As a fan perspective, you're like, you know, you're up there, and like Kevin Campion and Brent Tate, you know, these real elite professional Australians, to come to New Zealand and play the way you did and embrace the people and the country and the culture. I think that's why we loved you so much.
Yeah, well, the other real positive too was the Warriors were very, very supportive of me still playing Origin for Australia. Whereas the Bulldogs sort of said to me they wanted me to retire from rep footy, and only offered me 1 year and wanted me to retire from rep footy. I always felt that you don't retire from rep footy. I think it's a privilege and it's an honour. And if you don't get picked, it's not embarrassing. Like, it's an actual privilege to be chosen. So you don't retire so that you're not going to be not chosen. You just don't get picked. There's someone better than you at the time. That's fine, right? So I still wanted to play for Queensland. I still wanted to play for Australia. And I knew that the only way I could do that is to still play really well for the Warriors. So, you know, people spoke about me going to the Warriors and pretty much on a retirement package for 3 years. Like, that's not in my character, and that's not a part of me. And I'd never do that. I was really disappointed when people sort of associated that type of mentality with me. They obviously didn't know me very well, you know. And I was almost the opposite. It almost was a shot in the arm of enthusiasm and excitement. And to go and, you know, to come over with a guy named Ruben Wiki, who I knew every young Kiwi kid absolutely idolised. He's immortalised in New Zealand, right? And I was a bit sick of playing against Rubes, to be honest, as well as Stacey Jones. So to play on the same team as them, and then when we turn up at Mount Smart for the Bulldogs, because we had a pretty good team, there was always a big crowd. There was always a sellout when we played the Warriors, and there was always this sort of love-hate, I suppose, for the Bulldogs, because we had a lot of Kiwis in our team in the past. But then when the Warriors come in, everyone jumped back to the Warriors and sort of we were the big bad, wolves of the West. And some of the names I got called at Mount Smart were like next level. And I thought, you know what, it'd be pretty cool to be on the same side as those people, because I know how daunting it is to actually run on the field, and you're getting called that from Auntie. She got the dribble in the hand waving it.
Auntie and uncle, Oh, that's hilarious.
So
hilarious.
it was pretty cool, and that's where I was going to say to you about that period of time. That semi-final we played against the Roosters, and you're probably going to get to that, but sellout. The Mad Butcher did a magnificent job. It was a blackout, and I'm walking around to do the coin toss, and because the seats at the northern end, I think, and the southern end were the cheaper seats, but it was general admission. So if you bought the tickets, you had to get there early. Well, they were chock-a-block in the under-20s game, right?
Yeah, man.
And I'm walking around because I had to walk over the other side to do the coin toss. And then everyone starts chanting pricey. And I'm like, oh, I'm losing. I'm going, oh, my God, this is incredible. I get around to do the toss, and I'm bawling my eyes out. And Brad Fittler's the captain of the Roosters, and he's going, mate, are you all right? Going, oh, look, like this is amazing.
That's so good. I was in that crowd. I was chanting along with them, mate. It was one of the best nights of my life. What an amazing game.
Cool. So cool that night.
So good. Right, we'll get back to that game shortly. But I want to rewind a little bit. The Bulldogs were the team of 2002. You guys were unbeatable until the Warriors knocked your 17-game winning streak off. Unbelievable winning streak. And then obviously the salary cap scandals all announced. You're captain of the Bulldogs. As captain, and one, how much did you love being a captain? So that's the first question. And two, how hard was it dealing with that whole salary cap scandal and then walking away with a wooden spoon after being such an amazing side all season?
Yeah, so I'd been a captain all my juniors, as I said, coming to the Bulldogs, and it's a bit like royalty, like, you might never get the chance, but I had the aspirations to be the captain. That was my first year. We lost the first game of the West Tigers, who we should have beaten pretty well. We drew the second game of the Broncos, and everyone was questioning whether I'm any good and are we going to be the team that we thought we were going to be. Then we go on 17 winning streak. And as you say, we lose to the Warriors, who we always had really tough games against the Warriors during that sort of period. They had a very good footy team, and they were always really, really competitive games. They stopped our run. And then to get the tie of the news or having all our points taken off us was devastating. But that's where I sort of say to you about the reconnection with our supporters. And we probably gained more supporters during that period for the way we handled it. Now, the decision we made pretty early was that it'd pretty much be only me and our CEO that would talk. So I would talk on behalf of the players and sort of the club, and the CEO from the business part of the situation. And that was a pretty difficult thing to do because you had to understand all the diverse people you're talking to. There was Bulldog supporters, there was other team supporters, there was other sports supporters, there was people who didn't even like rugby league. But whatever you said had to make sense and be respectful. So we went about it saying, yep, it's our fault. We cop it. We're going to play the absolute best we can for the next 3 weeks. And at the end of the day, it's still going to have 18 or 19 wins, 3 losses, and a draw on ours. No one can take that away from us. It's going to have an asterisk, and we'll be at the bottom of the table, but we're actually the most winningest team of the season. So, that's so when we got told the result, we go to Canberra, we're down 20-0 after 20 minutes. We come back and lost 38-34, I think it was. Then the next week, we play against the Melbourne Storm, and we actually wiped them clean. The last game of the year, we play against the Broncos at home, and the Broncos have to win to be minor premiers. Otherwise, the Warriors finish minor premiers. And I saw Wayne before the game, and I said, mate, you're not going to win tonight. And he goes, oh, we're going to win tonight. We're going to win easily because we've got so much more to play for than you blokes. And I went, okay, that's all cool. It was a sellout at the showground, which not a big crowd, but very, very emotional night. This is our grand final. And
Yeah.
we went out and we absolutely did a job on them. And then the
Yeah.
crowd went on the field after the game and they're cheering us around. And
Wow.
the emotions were incredible. It was almost better than winning a competition because
Oh, really?
that connection that we got with our fans. So because we had all of these things that were being announced, so many people would come to the Leagues Club. And when we went to Canberra, there was a heap of people there to see us off. That never happened because of the Super League era. Like that
Yeah.
connection was lost. And I think we
Yes.
gained more supporters at the Bulldogs because of how we handled that situation. And we
Okay.
become stronger as a playing group and as a supporter base and as a club as a whole. Um, so, the next 2 years after that became big years. We potentially could have won 3 in a row if we hadn't have got
Yeah.
those points taken off us. The next year, because Roosters were the team, right?
They
It was
were.
us and the Roosters. But by us beating the Broncos, Warriors finished on top. And then the Warriors end up playing the Roosters in the grand final. Was that?
That's right. Yeah. Broke my
That's
heart.
it.
Bloody
And then I
Roosters
think
won.
I think Villa knocked out Freddie, and I think that changed the game.
Pretty much.
Richard Villasani, all the
Yeah.
Roosters just got pissed off, and they come
Yeah.
back and won the game. But then 2003, we ended up losing the first semi, I think, to
To the Warriors.
well, it was Warriors.
Francis Smelly got 5
Only
tries.
5 tries, yes, to the
Ace.
Warriors
That was,
at home,
yeah.
and then we had to cross over and play the Roosters before the grand final, which we bashed
Right.
each other. And then Penrith went on and beat the Roosters in the grand final. And then
Yes.
finally in 04, we got to play them in the grand final, my last year at the club, and we were able to beat them. So,
Amazing.
yeah, it was quite a incredible time, sort of from 2001 to 2004, of the talent that we had,
Yes.
and the things that we had to deal with: salary cap, sexual assault allegations, all
Yeah.
sorts of different things. That we're able to, I suppose, unite as a group and as a supporter base and be able to have some success. And unfortunately, the club hasn't won a comp since. But
Yeah.
there's been plenty of close calls with Melbourne when they got beaten by Melbourne, and obviously the Rabbitohs when they got beaten by the Rabbitohs. But
Yeah. True.
it was probably the greatest way I could have left the club, was winning a comp. And as the captain, even though I didn't play on the day, that's all I wanted to do was be a premiership winning captain. And I sort of got to do it, but sort of didn't.
Yeah.
I
It's got a little
enjoyed it.
asterisk next to it.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
True Bulldogs fashion.
Yeah, that's right.
So like you said, that 2004 season, you had some amazing talents coming through, like Braith and Asset, and one Sonny Bill Williams, unbelievable player. You got to play alongside him that year. You guys go through to the grand final. So what happened to you? Why did you miss the final? And just how emotional was that whole time? Knowing you were leaving for the Warriors and finishing up with a premiership, but kind of not a premiership for you, but you're part of the squad. You were there till the very last game, and yeah, talk us through all that.
Yeah. So I think we lost to the Cowboys in the first week of the semis.
Okay.
Matty Singh scored 2 or 3 tries and they beat us. And that again switched us over to the other side.
Right.
But then we had to play, I think we played Melbourne, and then we played Penrith. So we beat Melbourne pretty well. And then we had to play Penrith in the second hit up of the game. I always used to like to do the first hit up because you don't want to see your mate getting bashed. So you always like to be the one who gets bashed. Unfortunately, this time they kicked to Mark O'Mealy's side. So I had to do the second run and I ran into the 2 Hair Bears. Joey Gallavau and Pulatua, and then Marty Lane. And when they tackled me, they sort of flung me and I ruptured my medial. So I had done it before, so I knew what I'd done. Okay. I went off, got a needle, hoped that it wasn't as bad as what it was. We ended up winning the game. That was the famous game. Sonny put the shot on Joel Clinton.
Yeah.
a big shoulder charge and blew his hair back and stuff like that. But yeah, won the game. And then the whole focus for that next week was on the grand final. But what we wanted to do, we knew I wasn't playing, but we wanted to make it public that I was trying my hardest to get on the field because Johnny Thurston was going to take my place and we wanted to protect him as much as we could. So we tried to do that up until Thursday because that's when the media can't talk to the players anymore. Okay. So right up until Thursday, we were, video footage of me getting in the hyperbaric chamber and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, got to the actual game, and I think what worked well for me was my focus changed from actually more worrying about the boys and trying to get them right for the game as well as trying to protect them as much as we could. So did all that, and before we knew it, it was game day. And then I'm turning up to the game and I'm just trying to make sure all the boys are all good. And that actually helped me not think about me, not feel sorry for me. And at the end of the day, we'd all been there for the whole year and our goal was to win the comp, and we were still able to do that. So stop being a selfish sookie bugger and jump on board with everyone else. And I think that whole experience taught me how many players actually play a part in winning a competition. It's not the ones that walk the oval with the trophy. It's, we had, I think, 28 or 30 players that year who had played a role from one game up to 15 games through that season, and they all played a part for us to be there. So they deserve to be celebrating that as well because they were a big part of it. So by being one of those people, you sort of feel like a bit of a Harry hang-on. But I think it really shows what it takes to win a competition and who needs to be recognised when you do win a competition. It's not just the 17 or the 18 who are a part of that night, because you've already highlighted how many guys Peter Ryan didn't play because he was suspended or injured, and Tony Carroll did, and Isaac Luke, and there's a whole heap that over the years.
Yeah, that's right.
Even that year, Luke Ricketson was suspended for the Roosters, didn't play. So it happens every single year, unfortunately, and we always forget about that. But they're just as much of a part of it, win or lose.
Absolutely, man. Right, so you walk away with technically a premiership, and you're captain of the Bulldogs. You're leaving the club, so massive news breaks. You're signed with the Warriors. How did the whole Warriors deal come around? Why did you think it was time to move on? And what was the appeal to the Warriors as a club, because they were on shit street that season when you signed with them?
So I'll give you a really quick overview. Basically, with the salary cap, the club wanted to sign me as being the captain. They signed me for 4 years, but they couldn't sign me for the money that I had already agreed to signing with the club. So I was coming off contract in 2002. I'd agreed to a new deal, but hadn't actually signed it yet. And then the salary cap thing hit. And then we got a new CEO, and the CEO, was Steve Mortimer, and he said, I want to sign you first. And I said, well, we've actually agreed to a deal, and this is what the deal is. And then he goes, can you send it through to me? So we sent it through to him, the manager did. And then he goes, oh, mate, we can't do that. And so, okay. So then I go on the old deal I was on, pretty much, with a 20% pay cut, because we all took a pay cut to stay together. So I was actually less than what I was on originally, which that's fine. But what they said was sign a 4-year deal, and 2 years is stock standard, and the other 2 years is in your favour. So give us 2 years to get it sorted, and we'll sort things out within the next 2 years, and then we'll be able to give you what you should get, right? I said, okay, sweet as. So 2004 comes around, and nothing's changed. The club's re-signing Sonny Bill, Marco Miele, Braithen Astor, which is cool. Sweet as. That's all good. And then I was sort of saying to my manager, I go, what about my situation, mate? Because we've got another CEO in that time. So that was Malcolm Node. So my manager goes and sees the club and sort of says, well, this was the situation and this is what we were told. What's sort of going to happen? in that time, there was a guy who had worked at the Bulldogs previously, whose brother-in-law was the CEO at the Warriors. And
Okay.
he knew my contract. So he
Right.
said to his brother-in-law, he's got this clause in his contract. So if you want to sign him, it's a possibility. So he reached
Okay.
out to me and said, would you consider meeting with the Warriors to listen to what they've got to say potentially about signing with the Warriors? And I said, of course. Why wouldn't you? You know, no
Okay.
worries. Not going to hurt. So I met at the Novotel at Homebush with might have been Spiro Siros or Mick Watson, one of them. Had a meeting with them. It all went well. And they just sort of said to me, we haven't made any offer yet, but would you consider it if we did? And I said, yep, absolutely. I'd
Okay.
consider, you know, going down that path. All right, no worries. So then they sent through an offer, and that was obviously pretty good. So then we sort of seriously started considering it, and
Yeah.
the Bulldog stuff was still going on, and they sort of got rid of Gary Hughes because of the sex scandal scenario,
Yep.
which is really sad. I wasn't born and bred Bulldogs, but Gary Hughes was, and I thought,
Yes.
far out, I thought I was going to be a part of this club for the rest of my life. But if that can happen to Gary Hughes, who was born and bred, played all his
Yeah.
junior senior footy, he can just go and get sacked over something that he shouldn't have been sacked for. It's just a job, right? So the most important team I come home to every night is the most important team, not the one that I play for, because when you retire, you fish paper anyway.
Yeah.
So that started to change my thought process. And I thought,
Okay.
you know, I've got to start to think about what's most important in my life rather than, you know, want to be loyal and not get taken for granted. But they expected that because they knew that what sort of person they had and all that sort of stuff. So I started to think a bit differently. And yeah, things started to progress from there. So I rang Wayne Bennett and I said to Wayne, I said, the Warriors have contacted me and are seriously considering offering me a contract. What do you think? And he goes, oh, mate, I think it'd be great for you. And I think it'd be great for them because he knew the whole Bulldogs situation.
Right.
He'd spoken about me potentially going to the Broncos, but they didn't have any money in their cap. But he didn't think that it was fair with what had happened. So he said, no, I think that's fair, which didn't make me continue with but it supports it, right? It's another piece of the puzzle. And then, yeah, we just continued talking. My manager didn't want me to go to the Warriors because
Okay.
he didn't have any players there and he didn't trust the administration. There was something about the administration he just didn't trust.
Okay.
Jim Bennigan had a lot of players at the club. So most of the Warriors were Jim Bennigan managed players. That wasn't why he didn't want me to go to the Warriors, but he just wasn't sure. And plus, he didn't want to be the manager that, you know, of the captain of the Bulldogs that's left. Like, he wants to be that person, you know, that's
Not me.
so he pretty much tried to, you know, convince me not to go. And then I just woke up one morning and said, nah, I'm going. I'm going to take the
Okay.
offer. I'm very comfortable with that. And I've achieved everything that I've ever wanted to at the Bulldogs. I could stay there for the next 3, 4, 5 years and be as happy as, but I want to challenge myself. I still want to play rep footy. The Bulldogs didn't want me to do that. It was just things that, you know, the, the Warriors were allowing me to do that the Bulldogs wouldn't. And I thought, instead of going to England, which at the time there was a bit of terrorism, so if we were stuck in England, it'd be hard to get back. New Zealand's
Okay.
not far. I'm still playing in the NRL, still play for Queensland, still play for Australia. So the hardest bit was once I made the decision, I then told the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
The captain's run the next day, and the CEO organised for all of our diehard fans to turn up with signs. Please don't go, Steve. We love you. We don't want you to leave. All that.
Wow.
Yeah. And so then the next day we played the Broncos, and my wife didn't want to come to the game because she goes, I'll start crying if someone asks me what's going to happen. And I go, if you don't come to the game, they're going to think something's happened anyway. Before the game, I got interviewed and they sort of said, "Oh, so what are you deciding with the Warriors and Bulldogs?" And I just sort of said, "You know what? I just hope that people understand and respect my decision, whatever that decision is." And then everyone that was after that just go, "We know he's leaving."
Yeah.
So the next day we had our training, our recovery, and we called a meeting for everyone, and that's when I announced it to the group, and I
Yep.
absolutely lost it. I was bawling my eyes out, could hardly say a word. And then almost straight after that, I went and did the press conference, and it was the best thing that happened. Like, I was right then. I knew I had this amount of time left with the Bulldogs. I wanted to make the most of that. Yeah, it was really good. Folksy pretty much told me not to play that weekend. We were playing the Sharks. So he said, go home, get away, because there's a fair bit of hype around. Just have the weekend off. So I flew back to Queensland and was with my family, and I was really enjoying it. And then I got a call on the Saturday to say that we've had an injury and I've got to come back and play against the Sharks. So yeah, not very good preparation for a game when you're flying back the day before after not preparing because you've been told to have the week off. But yeah, I went back and it was the greatest thing. It was really good. Everyone was fantastic. They respected my decision. Whilst the Bulldogs fans were upset, they respected it and understood, and the Warriors fans seemed as though they were pretty excited. So
yeah, man.
We played the Warriors last game of the year at Mount Smart, and everyone, I think Arwen, Monty, they were all shooting out of the line trying to whack me. I think we put 50 on the Warriors that day because
you still smashed them.
They were trying to whack me. They were trying to whack me. And I just kept on keeping on to Sonny or whatever, he'd run the length and score. But yeah, it was quite surreal playing against the team that you're going to go to at their home ground. Sort of them knowing that you're going to go there, and they're sort of happy about it, but they're not happy because you're playing for the opposition at the time. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. And as you say, going from what you'd say the penthouse to the shithouse, like the Warriors finished equal last. And I came to the Warriors with a knee injury, obviously from not playing in the grand final. So when I started my first week at the club, I was in the rehab group, and I'll never forget it. We're at Waitakere Trust Stadium there, and I'm walking around the oval, and it's raining, freezing cold. I'm walking around with my leg brace and blah, blah, blah. And there's a couple of Māori kids on the hill, and I go, Steve Price. I go, hey, yeah, boys. Play for the Bulldogs, eh? And I said, yeah. You was their captain? I said, yeah, I was the captain. You signed with the Warriors, eh? And I said, yeah, signed with the Warriors. They go, oh, man, you play with Sonny Bill Williams? I said, yeah, play with Sonny Bill Williams. He's a great player. Oh, man, I wish the Warriors had signed Sonny Bill Williams instead of you. Welcome to New Zealand. So I get in my Suzu big truck that the club had given me, which is straight from Japan. There's only one radio station you can get. Not many, if any, by Scribe was the song at the time. And that's played every second song because that's a station that I had. Oh my God, I was crying all the way back to Auckland, get on the phone to my wife. Joey, don't worry about packing all the stuff up. They hate me here. We got a lot better from there. A lot better from then.
Oh, mate, that's hilarious. What a welcome to the Warriors in New Zealand. So you actually came to the Warriors and you were named captain your first season. Like, what an honor was that for you? Like, and what did you bring to the side to help just tweak, how the players might train or do certain things on the field as the captain of the Warriors?
That was the really hard bit. I never signed with the Warriors thinking I was going to be the captain. I just thought that was a lady on Mazaire. That was going to be Ruben Wiki. I didn't think there was any decision to be made, but the club decided on me, and I was very honoured, and I made sure Rubes was okay with it because I didn't want to be doing it if it was something very important that he wanted to do and whether he'd been promised it or not. Anyway, it wasn't the best of preparations because as I said, I had a knee injury. I didn't play any trial games. I hardly trained with the team. Our first game was against Manly at Mount Smart, and that was my first game for the club. So it was a real interesting jump into the fire because I'd watched the Warriors the year before. Whenever they got a penalty, they just quickly run up and tap it.
Yeah.
We got a penalty, and I walked up and said, we're going to take the 2. And I think not only the other 12 players, but the 4 reserves started running on the field to abuse me because that's not what we do. And I go, I know exactly that's not what you do because what you did last year didn't work, Buzz. Like, it's come last. So we've got to change what we're doing. But it was a really interesting way. I'd only played against those boys, so they only knew me as an opponent.
Yep.
And I learned so much about leadership. I learned a lot about that at the Bulldogs, but I learned even more. I thought I knew pretty much everything about leadership from what I'd experienced at the Bulldogs. But what the Warriors taught me about leadership was very diverse, culturally diverse, making sure that each individual is empowered to be a leader, that it's not up to one person with a title. And particularly when you've got such a diverse cultural perspective like the Warriors, we had some amazing people in that group. You know, Rubes and Lance Ohio, Warren Kupu, Logan Swan, all leaders from their own communities or their own cultures that played a huge part in, you know, helping me understand. You know, they might say, oh, Sione's not real good this week. There's some stuff going on at home. Okay. Because if I was in Sydney, I'd be up him saying, what's going on, mate? Like, pull your head in. You need to be training harder. That's a shit attitude. Whereas that's what I started to understand. This is a very different environment, you know?
Yes.
And it was really, really cool. I learned so much over that sort of 5-6 year period about what leadership actually is. And it's the empowerment of individuals to make them feel valued and also feel being as though they've got a voice and they can actually lead, because you need that. And you know, we talk about games, famous games where we've come back and won. It wasn't our superstars that brought that, you know, brought us back into the game. It was the ones who probably weren't the most recognised players that brought us back into it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, you know, I guess your leadership was tested again the following year, 2006. It's been a deja vu. The Warriors are stripped of 4 points, another salary cap breach you've had to work your way through. Like, just how frustrating was that for you? But how did you get the boys up for that season? Because you only just missed the 8, like 2 points or something. It was such a good season to watch.
Yeah. So I think what happened was I don't think the Warriors thought they'd get both Rubes and I.
Right.
Like, if I'm being honest, I think they actually put in for both of us thinking they'll get one of us. But if they got one of us, that was a win, right? But I didn't think they thought they were going to get both of us. So I think that sort of put them into a situation where they weren't expecting. Plus, there was sort of the way the club was being managed was a little bit unique previous to our arrival. And then when the CEO left, that gave the NRL an opportunity to come in and look at the books, which they've been wanting to, but they hadn't had a chance to. And when they got a chance to look at the books, then that's what it actually was the previous 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Which is when the club wasn't going so good, right? So it doesn't always mean if you're over the salary cap, you're going to have immediate success. You still got to have a lot of other things go your way. But it was very much deja vu. And I was like, oh my God, what is this going to be the rest of my career? But I think the best thing that we did was worried about what we could focus on and what we could control. And Ivan was really good at that as well. You know, it was his first time as a head coach. He was only a couple of years older than me, so we probably had more in common than I had in common with any of my teammates or other than Rubes. So it was me and Rubes and then and Ivan, and then all the rest of them were kids. So that was the other thing that was great. We had such a young team. They were very enthusiastic, very talented, very skillful. And the Warriors that actually started being able to attract the best Kiwi kids to the Warriors rather than every Sydney team getting the Kiwi kids and we getting the leftovers, you know, which was awesome. And, you know, your Sam Rapiras and Manu Vadavais, Russell Packers, Ben Madalino.
All of those.
All of those kids. started coming through, which awesome kids and could play a bit of footy. Simon Mannering, you know,
Legend.
all those sort of kids.
Yeah, man. So you missed the playoffs, but it was a bloody good season to watch, especially after the last couple of years as a Warriors fan. You could tell that success might be just around the corner. And then you signed a few guys like Wade McKinnon and who else came in that year? Corey Laurie, Panther from down here in Christchurch. Good old Corey,
Yeah.
legend. And all of a sudden, you guys are a top four side. You're absolutely putting
Whitty,
teams away.
did
Hey?
we sign Whitty? Michael Witt?
Yeah, Michael Witt, that's right. Yeah.
Or was he signed the year before? I don't know.
No,
Around that
2007,
time.
Michael Witt arrived, and
Yeah.
Michael Crockett was another one, actually, on the wing.
Is that when Georgie Gaddis came, or is he?
He was there 06 as well,
06.
06 and 07.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Feeney was
so you guys were
there.
just putting teams away. And, you got amazing trials at the game. Newcastle, big, was it 100 meters with a chip kick? And
Yeah, no, well, I think
right.
the only reason why I scored was because who was it that was chasing me? He was a second rower, and I had a bit of a head start on him. So that was the only reason why I got there, because he was the one who was chasing me, and I didn't have any actual fast blokes who were chasing me.
Mate, that was a magical night as a fan. Absolutely brilliant. I actually got to meet you after the game with all the players in the players' lounge or the members' lounge. Like you
That
wouldn't
was really
remember
cool.
it.
No, that was
years ago.
really good. That was really good when we did that. I really enjoyed
Yeah.
that, and we'd be still smelly and stinky from the game, but I think the actual members in that really enjoyed it as well, because it was an opportunity to, you've just finished playing and you get to actually have a chat to the boys straight after the game and get their thoughts, and again, that connection with our fans. It was good.
Yeah, man. And as a young fella then, I was getting my autographs and you all signed my jersey. I got like 2007 Warriors away jersey with the whole team signing it. Ruben Wiki, yourself, Wade McKinnon, I was just like, wow. It was such a cool experience.
Yeah.
And you guys went on to the playoffs. You had the blackout at Mount Smart against the Eels. Huge match. Unfortunately, it didn't go your way, but what did you think as being the captain, you're finally finding some success, and then the Warriors put on this unbelievable atmosphere with the blackout?
Oh, yeah, it was huge. And this isn't blaming Logs, but to show you how close we were to go to the next level, Logs passes the ball and we score, we win the game. And it's not blaming Logs, because that was just one moment of a whole game, but that's how close we were, right? So I did feel as though we were getting very close to actually achieving what we wanted to, or why we all went there was to win the Warriors' first premiership. That's why we all went there, right? So I felt as though we were getting closer. I thought Ivan was doing a great job as head coach. He had some very, very good support staff. As you say about our group, it was quite a diverse group. We had a fair few Aussies in the squad, but did Tatey come in 07?
That was 08.
08, yeah. So, we had some quality regular first graders, as well as all those kids that I was talking about, the young Kiwi kids that were being developed by the Warriors coming through the ranks. It was very exciting times.
Yeah, it was unlucky not to win, because I reckon you guys probably pushed for a premiership if you got through that game, because then you had to go to bloody North Queensland. They turned on the heat for one day, absolutely sweltered you guys, and unfortunately copped a hiding to finish the season.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, those are the two that sort of, and then the other one was obviously Manly. When we beat Melbourne in 08, and we went through that period where we beat the Roosters at home, and then we played Manly, but they were on the calf's blood then. No one was going to beat them then.
No,
they won the grand final 40-0, didn't they, against Melbourne?
Yeah, they flogged Melbourne.
It
was good.
So,
like you said, 2008, Brent Tate, your brother-in-law, signs with the Warriors. I'm guessing you might have had some role to play in that to, maybe tell him that it was a great place to come to, because I was fizzing with excitement to think we had a backline with Wade McKinnon, who was unbelievable in 07, Manu Vatuvei, Brent Tate, who else was there? You had Patrick Arvan and you had Lance O'Hire in the centres and fullback, and you had an amazing
Yeah,
backline. To add Brent Tate to
Jerome,
that was pretty special.
Jerome.
Oh,
Yeah,
Jerome. How could I forget Jerome? He's
yeah.
unreal.
No, we did. And you know what? It wasn't a hard sell, but all I said to Brenny was, you'll actually really enjoy the lifestyle as well as the opportunity to bring your experience and have a different impact on the team that you're playing in. At the Broncos, like at the Bulldogs and at the Raiders, with me and Rubes and Brent, we walked into that. Like that was already created and you just had to maintain it. Whereas at the Warriors, we're trying to create it, right? So
Right.
we were trying to create a consistent, very competitive, successful culture, high performing culture that no matter who was there, you were always up there every year. Like you were making the finals. It was just where you finished in those finals and how good of a run you had or injuries or not, that you'd have would decide on whether you'd win the comp or not. So that's where we're trying to get to. And to Brenny's credit, he jumped on it. He obviously supported that, and I really enjoyed it. My wife really enjoyed it because she came down to Sydney quite young. She was 19. So Brent was, I think Brent's 10 years younger than us. So he was only 9 when my wife left home. So yeah, he was only a baby. So to actually get to spend, every day with your brother and his family, his wife and his son and that type of thing in an environment where, it's very welcoming and enjoyable, a little bit unique and a bit different, but really cool. It was very, very cool.
Man, he was another ultimate professional. He kept coming back from 3 or 4 ACLs during his career, still representing Queensland, Australia.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. Like I couldn't believe it when the Warriors
One of the
announced they'd
most,
signed him.
I just sort of describe him, and it's a bit, it's because he's my brother-in-law, but he's one of the most passionate and most competitive guys and loyal that I've ever known, and some of his performances for the Warriors and the Broncos, but particularly for Queensland and Australia, go down in folklore, right? Like some of the things that he's been able to do against the odds and like you say, come back from the injuries that he's come back from. It's truly inspirational for anyone who does come across that type of luck. It's unfortunately it's part of the game. And instead of sort of kicking stones and feeling sorry for yourself, you just look at it in a way of, this is when I'll be back. I know what I've got to do to get back, and I'm going to be back bigger and better than ever.
Yeah, he showed that because I remember even in his last season at the Warriors, he's just found some amazing form after sitting the whole 2009 season out with another ACL. He
Yeah,
he came good, and it
yeah.
was a shame that he went to the Cowboys because I was like, oh my god, he's like got his speed back. He's unreal. Scored some great tries, and yeah, what a player. So and that's all right. We scrape into the finals. The Warriors are going to Melbourne. The match of first ever club to win a playoff from 8th place on the ladder. How hard was it? Well, how easy was it getting up for that match actually? Because you guys were really up to go to Melbourne and take them on.
Yeah, so Melbourne you got to remember then too, Melbourne had only lost 2 or 3 games in 5 or 6 years in Melbourne. So they had a pretty good success rate at Olympic Park. But we always went pretty good there. And I think because, on the longitude or latitude or whatever, Melbourne and Auckland are pretty similar, right? So your weather
Okay.
conditions are quite the same. And there's a lot of Kiwis in Melbourne. So whenever we'd play against them, we'd always get a lot of support. So there was a lot of support there. And for us, we were the underdogs. No one gave us a chance, which even worked even better. There was no pressure on us. They're basically just saying they're turning up to be kicked out. Like they're gone. That's Mad Monday for them, right? So yeah, we turn up and we just hang in there. And then my boy Wit Dog, he gets the opportunity to ice the game and decided to take his time.
Just say to him, come on, but just say.
Oh no, I can't repeat it. You know what?
Well,
One
let's just
thing,
say you gave him a spray.
100%. One of the best things probably is that he might have been able to hear all of it because of my voice. And the louder I try and yell, the less you can hear me. So I would have been yelling from about 50 or 60 away. And Yeah, I would have been absolutely hoarse, I reckon, by the time I finished giving him a
Oh,
spray. I wouldn't have liked to have stood beside me because you would have got a lot of saliva all over you. I would have been,
oh,
yeah. But
brilliant.
no, I mean, even that try, like for us to have had that play,
Amazing.
Jerome, Manu, and then Whitty to be supporting. Yeah, it was truly awesome for us to be in that situation at that time of the game, and then to be able to, get the opportunity to win the game was really, really special. And like you say, as a first time teammate, probably the first and last because you don't have that. The system's
Yeah,
not like that anymore. So
it's true. I think I
team
think
five or team,
Parramatta may have done it as well, but it was after the Warriors. I think it was
right?
in their run in 2009, actually. I
Oh
think they
yeah,
did it the year after.
when the Hayne
Yeah,
plane got the Player of the Year.
that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah,
He was unreal. So you get the win, you fly back to New Zealand, you've got the one of the best matches on record for a Warriors fan or player, that semi-final against the Roosters. An unbelievable crowd. I had season tickets. I had to somehow scrounge a ticket to even get a seat. It was sold out within seconds.
yeah.
Unbelievable. And one of the
No,
greatest
it was
nights as a Warriors
that
fan
was
in
that was
history.
truly, truly special. That was yeah, that and the game I was telling you about at Sydney Showgrounds in '02, they were up there with the most emotional games that I've been a part of.
Yeah.
I think after the first 10 minutes we were down 10-0, so we didn't do it easy. Like it didn't go our way, and then
Yeah, you're
we
down at
came
half
back.
time.
Yeah, and then we came back and ended up getting over the top of them. But they had a stacked team as well. The Roosters, like you go
Yeah.
through some of the players they had, and they had a very good footy team, very well coached, and had a lot of success during that period. So it was always going to be tough, but yeah, that was pretty special. And I think we're actually starting to believe this could be our year. Unfortunately, we had to win. I think it was 10 out of our last 12 to make the semis, and I just reckon those two games really chipped away at the energy we had and our injuries and we the thing that we were able to do over that period was have the same 17, which
Yeah.
really helped us. But
Sure.
I think we started to get really fatigued because teams like, Melbourne and Manly, they were fresh as like they were able to rest players and do this and do that as they sort of came into the finals because they had the position already sewn up, so they were going to be in the semis, whereas we still had to fight to make the semis. So I truly believe that's the only difference. I think if we're on a level playing field, I reckon we would have been a lot bigger chance of winning the comp that year. But I just think at that time of the year, we're just run out of fuel.
Yeah, mate, but she was a pretty awesome watch. Great season. It was just nice to see the Warriors getting some consistency and actually make the finals. Like even 06, you would have made it bar those competition points. So,
Yeah,
for 3 years in a row, the Warriors have seen plenty of, improvement and consistency and flair. Like you had a really nice brand of football to watch as well. It was really nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had a lot of attacking threat right across the field. So, even our hooker scenario, you had Nathan Feen and Georgie Gaddis,
Yeah.
very different players, but very threatening players. Like they both didn't mind having a run, and they were both very creative with the footy.
Yeah.
And then our middles, Avanti Mavavi and Benny Madalino, Sam Rapira, Rubes,
Yeah.
myself, like, had a skill set, ran hard, were decent body sizes. And then you got a guy like Manu Vatavai who comes in almost as an extra front rower.
Crazy, eh?
Um, and yeah, and then some of those other guys had a lot of speed. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what the really good thing about was we call it sort of half full when we attack around halfway because the
Yeah.
defense don't know whether to have their wingers in the line or out of the line.
Yeah.
So Johnny Ackland had this theory that if we attacked from around halfway, you're a lot more chance of scoring long distance tries because not all their defensive players know exactly what to do. Whereas when
Okay.
you're coming off your try line, they really get into you. And when you're trying to score, the defenses are a bit more passive, let you do what they do, that you do to cover the
Yeah.
field. Whereas in the middle of the field, they don't. And we scored a lot of sort of middle field, long distance tries.
You did indeed. They were great to watch. They were just fantastic.
Yeah.
So, coming off 2 or 3 pretty good years, and then unfortunately 2009, we all heard the sad news of Sonny Fai's passing. It was absolutely, devastating for players, fans, the club, New Zealand as a whole. Just how hard was it from a player's point of view? And obviously, the season was a bit of a train wreck as a result. How tough was that for you? And what are your memories of the great Sonny Fai?
Yeah, I suppose that's the saddest thing is the year that we had in '09 because we had Sonny's signature and his play number in our jersey and we were playing for him, right? But yeah, that didn't replicate on the field. Like he meant so much to us and we didn't play anywhere near what we should have played like if we were truly, playing for Sonny. So
Yeah,
that was probably the most disappointing thing. But on top of that is I don't think we all realised how much of a true impact it had on us until at the end. I saw Manu Vatuvai on 60 Minutes and he was his usual self, big Manu, and laughing and giggling and the gold teeth and everything. And then when the lady asked him about Sonny and how um, how sad that was and that type of thing, then Manu just lost it and he's, crying and snot's coming out of his nose and, he just lost it. And that sort of really hit home to me of exactly how hard that we had done it, but we tried to act these tough guys every day of the week.
yeah,
In front of our family and friends and fans and support and sponsors and the game really. And maybe looking back on it, we probably should have just been really open and honest right from the start and had a couple of events or done a couple of things where we could have. I don't know. It's probably a lot easier to look back on things when you're retrospective, but yeah, Sonny was not was is such a um, amazing personality. Like he's so vibey, very energized, very energetic, a big personality and a big body. So he's got a huge presence without
yeah,
being arrogant or bullyish or anything like that. He's very soft personality. Someone that had a huge impact on a 3-year-old kid right through to a 95-year-old grandma. With Sonny, I think by going to his funeral and, we went to Bethel's Beach, all of those opportunities, you actually saw the pure rawness of emotion of what impact he had on people. And
yeah,
I look at that as being, there's only certain people that you can look at that are put on this earth to do. And he was put on here for a short time, but had a huge impact. And that's
mm,
what I remember. And that's what I'm grateful for to have had so much time with him, had so many experiences with him. Devastated that he couldn't reach his full potential because he could have been anything. But on the other side of it, yeah, one of my greatest experiences of my New Zealand experience
yeah.
is having Sonny Fai as part of my life.
Yeah, mate. He was a tremendous player. I remember going to a Bulldogs match versus the Warriors. He scored, I think, 2 tries and then said
Sonny
something
Bill.
like, "Who's the real Sonny now?"
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
played Sonny Bill Williams.
yeah,
What a
that's
great one.
right. And he's not an arrogant guy. Like he would have said that joking around,
Yeah,
but people could see that as being a bit arrogant, but he's not.
no, it's
He's
funny.
truly humble. Yeah, he's very humble.
Yeah. You would know Ruin Hammer. You went on their podcast, I don't know, probably 3 years ago, maybe, and they told me to ask you about your tattoo of the turtle and the story behind that with Sunny Fi. They thought that would be a
Yeah,
nice story that
yeah.
I should
So
need to hear.
so when Sonny went missing, I wanted to do something to show how much he meant to me in my life, right? So
Yep.
um, I tried to find a way that I thought could truly represent him. And I spoke to my wife and I said, I'm going to get a tattoo. and I want it to be, you know, a sign of Sonny and his impact on my life. And then she sort of said, I think that's really good. But she goes, are you going to do that every time someone who means something to you passes away? Because you haven't got enough skin on your body for that to happen, you know? And I said, yeah, that's true. So I called Tiki Tane, and I was pretty good mates with Tiki, and we had a bit of an experience, me, Tiki, and Sonny, where I used to do the Vodafone One tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one time it was, he loved music and he loved Tiki Tane, so we organised to go and jam with Tiki Tane. So we went and did that. So Tiki come to Warriors headquarters and trained with Sonny, and then we went to his studio and we did some jamming with him, or Sonny did some jamming with him, which was really cool. And it's quite ironic how with my tattoo, Tiki obviously has a lot of tattoos. And so I said, who would you recommend? And he goes, I'd recommend my cousin, Inia Taylor. So Inia did all the tattooing for Once Were Warriors, and he's done K's News and a few other sort of, you know, rugby players. Anyway, ended up being that Inia did my tattoo in the studio of Tiki where Sonny and I were, which is sort of, what's the suburb? Out towards Cumu, so not far from Bethel's.
Okay.
And it's all around that same sort of area, which is where Sonny went missing.
Okay.
So Sonny went missing on the 4th or 5th of January, I think it was. And I started getting my tattoo done, I think, a week or two later.
Yeah.
And it took 3 8-hour sessions. It took 24 hours to do. And I wanted to do a tattoo that represented everybody who's had a big impact on my life who's no longer here, but also, you know, my current stuff. And I didn't want to be seen as a bit of a plastic Polynesian or Kiwi or whatever, like, oh, he's lived here for 5 minutes and he goes and gets a Māori or, you know, a sleeve, like a Polynesian sleeve. And Inia sort of explained it to me. He goes, it's like Chinese food, mate. You don't have to be Chinese to eat Chinese. As long as you know what it means, it's your story, it's your meanings. That's what's most important. And I thought, that's fair, that's cool. So he came up with a design. And then during our 8-hour stints, he'd actually explain as he's doing each pattern or, you know, whatever it might have been, what that actually represents and what it means. So the spiritual side of things is the turtle. So he has that as a centerpiece, and the 4 legs on the turtle, they're all kurus, which are my grandparents.
Yes.
And then obviously the shell is protection. On the shell, there's 2 sets of eyes, which is the spirits overlooking me and my family and my friends. And then you've got the other kurus, which are my mum and dad and my kids, my wife. There's Celtic patterns in there because I've got Scottish, English, and Welsh heritage. There's some patterns in there that are Indigenous, so Aboriginal art. Obviously being Australian, and then there's Tongan, Samoan, and Māori. So tying in everyone that I've had pretty much something to do with, all the cultures that have been tied into my experience in New Zealand and everything like that, and all tied into one sort of sleeve. So he's done the turtle as though it floats over the whole tattoo. And when we finished our 3 weeks of tattooing, I needed to get it done before the season started. So on the Sunday I finished, and I went home, and then the next morning at about sort of 7:30, 6 o'clock the next morning, Inia rang me and he said, mate, he goes, you know how I said to you that you'll never find Sonny? he goes, "You're never going to find Sonny." And I said, "How can you say that, mate? Like, how do you know that?" And he goes,
Yeah.
"Well, what happens between man and ocean, and the reason why I chose turtle is because Polynesia, ocean and man, they made a commitment to each other that man will make sure that turtle, when it lays its eggs on the beach, that the turtle's eggs are all hatched and go back out in the ocean. In return to that, the ocean will take the man or, the Polynesian people's spirits and free them into the ocean as a thank you. So whenever
Okay.
something has been taken from the land, from the ocean, it'll always be returned to the land or something special from the ocean." And I go, "Okay." He said, "So on Muriwai Beach, which is only just around the corner from Bethel's, and that's through through currents." So he goes, "A turtle has just been washed up," and he sent me the actual newspaper clipping
Yeah.
of the photo of a turtle and a full adult human laying beside the turtle. This turtle's 100 to 150 years old, and he said it's washed up on the beach and passed away last night. So that is the land receiving from the ocean something special to say that we've taken something special from you, and in return, we're giving something special from us. So
Wow.
you can believe in all of this as much as or as little as you want. But when you look at the timing, when you look at the things that we chose, there was no reason why we chose the turtle other than Inia thought that it was practical for what I wanted. Where we got the tattoo done happened to be the same place that Sonny did his jam session with Tiki. There's actually a song that Tiki sings around all that. It's a Māori word. I can't remember. I think it starts with R.
Okay.
And all of that song from when I was talking to Tiki is all about the land and the ocean and how much it's connected and how much it respects and appreciates each other for both to survive at its best, right? And so, yeah, it's quite ironic that
Wow.
song was recorded in that place where Sonny was. Sonny and I did the whole Vodafone One Tribe thing. I got the tattoo done, and a turtle gets washed up on the beach. We've never found Sonny. He's never been found. So, yeah, look into it as little or as much as you want, but it sort of puts a bit chills up and down your spine.
Yeah,
And
man, it's giving me chills listening.
I am pretty spiritual, so I do believe there is something. And before my games, I would talk to the people that have meant so much to me, who are no longer on earth, to
Right.
give me love and strength and help me play as confidently and as injury free as I can. So that would be one of the last things I'd do before I'd run on the footy field. I'd wet my head and pray, whatever you want to call it. I'd just have my eyes closed talking to these people. So that was
Wow.
my little pre-match last thing that I'd do. And then that would be my final thing to have me ready for a game. No matter how good or bad I was feeling, that would be the last thing that would click me into gear to be able to go out and play the way I needed to play.
Wow. What a story, man. That's amazing. I love it. It's beautiful. Really, it is. It's really nice. So, to get back to the footy, round one, you played your 300th match. You're all playing for Sunny Fi. It's round one, the stadium. I was there. It was emotional, and then to see you guys run out, play your 300th match. You guys got the win, and Steve Price goes down in history as one of the great men of rugby league, and pretty special. 300 games, captain of the Warriors. How much did that mean to you?
Yeah, it was, mate. You're proud of yourself if you play one game in the NRL because you know how hard that is. But I was the 11th player. So Rubes did it just before me, I think,
Yep.
the year before. So he was the 10th player and I was the 11th player in history.
Awesome.
So that was in 100,
Yeah.
100 or so years. I know there's a lot more now, but that was pretty special. And it was crazy to have played against Parramatta, who were the team I supported as a kid. Who played my 300th game, and the club organised for Bobby Lindner to come over and present me my jersey and sort of be there for the function pre and post game. So Bobby Linder also played for Parramatta, who,
Yeah.
you know, again, I loved when he played for Parramatta because it was the team I supported and it was the player that I supported most. So there was my mum and my stepfather and my brother and sister and my wife and my mother-in-law. Everyone was over there to be there for it. It was a really, really cool occasion. The kids ran out with me on the field. We won the game. And yeah, particularly with what had just happened, it was a really cool way to go into the start of a season where we really wanted to, you know, have some success, not only for ourselves, but particularly for our Angels, Sonny. Yep.
Yeah, beautiful.
Started
Yeah,
well. Yeah, it started really
yeah.
well.
Yeah, you actually got to try in the round 2 against Manly with that awesome comeback victory. That was amazing. That was such a cool game. Talk
Yeah.
about killing us, but Dean and Keep got that sideline conversion to get the win right on the buzzer. What a game.
Yeah. No, that was pretty good.
That was good. So just to fast forward, we'll finish off 2010. Unfortunately, you didn't get on the field due to it was a heel injury, I believe you had.
Heel injury, yeah.
It just wouldn't go away. So how frustrating was that? And probably not the way you wanted to see out your career.
No, so I had that injury for the previous 2 years, and before every game, I'd have to get a local into my heel to play, which then wouldn't allow me to really train that much because, you know, I couldn't really run. So basically, it was an aggravated bursa in my heel, and what had happened over time, soft bone had grown, so there was no gap between, you know, my bursa and my heel, and it was just always irritated. So by getting that, you know, local into your heel, so if I played Origin, I'd have 3 locals in my heel in 7 days, right? So that's not healthy. That's not healthy for you. And so I spoke to the doc and sort of wanted to get it sorted so I could have a really good last season where I didn't have to worry about any pre-existing stuff before the season even started, let alone add to that as the year goes. So I had the heel operation, and then I got golden staph, and then so I ended up having 3 operations, and it was really frustrating because the harder I tried to get on the field, the less chance I was actually getting on the field because I think my body had just had enough. If a doctor had said, I'll be back in 12 weeks, I'll be back in 6 or 8 weeks. So that was just what I did, right? And it wasn't good for me, but that's just how I went about things. And the harder I tried with this injury, the longer it made it. And then it ended up being, I didn't get to play it all that year. So that was devastating. But now I look back on it, I actually think it was a good thing because if I had played every game that year, I probably would have wanted to play for another year. Do you know what I mean? So
prolong it.
My decision being out of my hands, it was probably a good way, you know, to a degree, where that it was taken out of my hands. Like I really tried hard to get on the field that year. And my brother-in-law absolutely gave it to me once when there was a time where I was in my head of the belief I'm doing a fitness test to play on that weekend when I'm running, I'm hobbling when I'm running. And he looked at me and he goes, Are you actually serious? You think you're going to play NRL this weekend? And I go, yeah. I'll go, I'll be sweet as, like, because I'd always done it, right? And he goes, mate, you can't even run properly. Like, it's embarrassing. Like, you're going to be a passenger. You're going to embarrass yourself. And I actually didn't think about it until after he said that. And then I sort of thought back what I was actually trying to do at training. And then when I did actually have my fitness test, all I did was, I think I had to do 10 shuttles. So, you know, return, take off, as though you're doing defensive tackles. And I think I was on the second one that I did, and I thought I ruptured my Achilles.
Oh,
because
wow.
what happened was when I went to take off, all the scar tissue tore. There was a whole heap of scar tissue there, and there was this massive divot in the back of my heel from where the scar tissue had torn apart, and it was really painful. And I thought I'd actually done my Achilles, and I'm on the ground. Oh no, I've done my Achilles. And then when they come over and they checked it out, they say, no, you haven't, because that was their biggest fear, was you're going to rupture Achilles because of the operation we did, and your actual anchor points of your Achilles are around that bone, so it could detach, put under too much load. So when I went down, I thought I'd done it. And that's when I knew what Brent was saying was very true. And that, I was pretty much over, and I just had to cop it. And that's when I made the announcement that I wasn't actually going to play. And it was heartbreaking, but only because that's not how I did things. But if I had have got to play every game, I guarantee I'll probably still be hoping I'd still play now, right? So
Sign me up, coach. I got one more.
not practically.
What an amazing career, though, mate. You could look back and just so many highlights. Like I could have written so many more questions, but I was like, nah, we'll be here for 10 hours if I did that. You had an amazing career, winning grand finals, played in a few, state of origin victories, playing for Australia. Wow, amazing. And an absolute amazing player for the Warriors. And we all appreciated you and loved your time with the Warriors. And I'm sure all the Bulldogs fans equally think the same thing. And it's just amazing to meet you and hear about your career. It's really cool.
No, thanks so much for having me on, mate. It's really cool that people like yourself are passionate about our game, and want to sit there and listen to old farts like me talk about our glory days. It's really cool to be able to go over it all, and it does make you pretty proud when you get opportunities like this to talk about some of your great moments and some of your not so great moments in your career. But I suppose I just got to be really thankful of the opportunities that I got, the people that trusted me, the people that backed me, supported me, from family, friends, officials, teammates, sponsors, all those sort of people, and how New Zealand welcomed us as a family. Like, we couldn't have asked for any more than what we received, and it definitely was a very special time in our life, and no one can ever take that away from us. So New Zealand's a very special place in our heart, and we love going back there. I was back there for Celebrity Treasure Island, which is good fun, and very different. But I hope to get over there this year to the Warriors Old Boys game, which I think is the Broncos Warriors game in June. I think it's June or July. So hopefully we'll get over for that, and that'll be the first time I've been over there sort of since COVID, because COVID happened and the Warriors were over here and all that sort of stuff. So back there to a Warriors Old Boys game.
Awesome, man. Right, I'm going to ask you 3 quick fire questions just to finish. I ask everyone these. Who's going to win the NRL in 2024?
I'll go Panthers.
Panthers for 4 in a row. All right, lock it in. Okay, so what is your favorite TV show or TV series of all time?
When I was a real little kid, I used to like Mork and Mindy. I used to sit there giggling and laughing. And then, what is it? Someone and Jerry? Jerry? No. They were comedians, and they were real old comedians.
No, not sure.
Yeah. Anyway, probably one of you people that's listening to this will be able to tell you. Anyway, he was very famous. They were both very famous American actors, and they were in a lot of movies together. Jerry, he was a comedian, had a funny laugh, short black hair, probably the 60s, 70s. Jerry Lewis, and the other guy was a singer, very famous sort of singer. Anyway, that'd be the ones I used to watch and laugh all the time.
Okay. All right, last question, mate. If you were on death row, what would your final meal be?
Probably my mum's garlic prawns.
Everyone loves their mum's cooking.
It makes some mad garlic prawns. Bit of rice, beautiful garlic prawns, and big king prawns or tiger prawns, or Aussie tiger prawns or king prawns.
Beautiful. Prawns for Steve Price. How good. All right, man. Thank you very much for going back into the day with me on the Point of Difference Rugby League podcast. It's been an absolute blast. And thank you to everyone for listening on Spotify, watching on YouTube. Get on the Facebook group, Point of Difference Rugby League. And we'll see you guys next time for kickoff.
Full time.